Hello and welcome to All Elite Morro. We're the best talk wrestling. This is something I've been working on for months. It's probably going to take hours to get through it. Recording this more or less straight after WrestleMania 42, Dumpster Fire. Although Punk and Roman was good. Dumpster fire of 2 nights of wrestling, stayed up half the night watching both of them. Not ideal, terrible way to consume wrestling. But anyway, this is something much more positive. You know, there's reasons why we actually love wrestling. I know you probably laugh because most of the time on the podcast, I'm negative or I'm criticizing or I'm not happy with how events unfolded, or not to be fair, when I see good wrestling, I say I've seen good wrestling. But this is the definitive top 100 wrestlers of all time, of which we have actually enough footage of for me to watch. I've been working on this for months, been watching a lot of wrestling from a lot of different eras, a lot of different countries. I'm finally happy with my list. I submitted it Friday before WrestleMania. I suppose, start with some honourable mentions. People I love that didn't make the list. Eddie Kingston, Sabu, Great Sasuke, Bam Bam, Pete Dunne, Fujinami. Fit Finlay didn't make the list. He was there for a long time. Mike Awesome, Christian Cage, the Garvins, both of them, Giant Baba, Inoki. A lot of great people there. Tajiri. They're all guys I had in that kind of 101 to 120 range. Things simmered down. But yeah, going to try and avoid. I want this to be manageable for people, so I'm going to try and avoid doing a 3-hour video. Here's the dog now. The dog is coming in. Run in from the dog. Dog has no psychology. We're 2 minutes 20 seconds in. You can't be doing a run in already. I'll probably record this in chunks of 25 or something. But the plan is not to go for hours and hours. Let's start with number 100. In at number 100, Dustin Rhodes, a.k.a. Goldust, a.k.a. what was that one? 7. And my recommendations for Dustin Rhodes. Dustin Rhodes has been like a near ever-present of my wrestling fandom. I started watching wrestling in 1992. Probably first came across Dustin Rhodes around 96, maybe 95. Whenever he went to WWE from WCW that time. You know, as a young fella, I was like, this is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. But it was captivating. And when you're that age, who doesn't love the WrestleMania 12 Hollywood Backlot Brawl versus Roddy Piper? Not something I've watched in a long time, but something that I loved when I was a kid. It was so unique. The OJ Chase sequence was bonkers. It's just the most ridiculous thing ever. Probably a terrible match. I don't know. I haven't watched it. I got WrestleMania 12 on tape shortly after it took place. Couldn't wait for Brett versus Shawn. But my favourite match on the card at the time was Piper and Goldust. He also takes place in what I think is the best multi-man match in WWE history. The 10-man tag at Canadian Stampede 97. He's also in what I think is one of my top 2 favourite multi-man matches in WCW history. Or actually NWA, WCW. War Games 92. Incredible stuff as well. And then his Magnus Opus, Double or Not in 2019. The first AEW pay-per-view versus his brother Cody. Incredible match. But just that longevity. We talk, 3 matches we mentioned there. WrestleMania 12, Canadian Stampede 97. And then 2019, his best match of his career, in my opinion, with his brother. Height of emotion, incredible storytelling. And yeah, he's still doing it today, 2026. And he's still great. So yeah, Dustin Rhodes in at number 100. In at number 99, Prince Devitt Finn Balor. Got the Irish vote. Got the Irish vote. In my opinion, Ireland's greatest wrestler. Um, you come across Finn Balor, 20. Well, it was I just remember the excitement when he debuted main roster in 2016, and he won that kind of like one night mini tournament to get a title shot at SummerSlam, and he went on to SummerSlam and beat Rollins for the title, 1 month up from NXT. Just the excitement that brought as an Irish wrestling fan to see Finn Balor debut like that. And Sheamus had success before that. Vic Finlay had success before that. Becky Lynch had most of her real big success after that. But that was a really special month in wrestling, and it's a shame it ended the way it did. His career could be totally different had that injury not taken place when it did. But again, we're 10 years on from that. He has never got that level of push again, but he's still doing interesting work consistently. His match quality isn't always unbelievable or anything. I wasn't a big fan of his match with Dom at Mania. But if you go back, Wrestle Kingdom 7, the triple threat with Ibushi and Low Ki, that's a banger. New Japan Destruction 2010 with Taguchi versus the Golden Lovers, incredible. And there's a whole host of matches in NXT where he is just on fire. You could even go to his, was it 2021 when he went back to NXT. There's a load of great stuff there as well with Kyle O'Reilly. But the Samoa Joe stuff was pretty cool. But I think my favourite NXT match was NXT TakeOver Rival, I think it was, when he took on Adrian Neville, aka Pac. Was Finn Balor just buttery smooth wrestler, really cool personality. Obviously, legacy stuff with Bullet Club is just insane. We spoke about that on the podcast multiple times. That's a huge thing for his legacy. Yeah, but in 99, Finn Balor. 98, Jun Akiyama. Jun Akiyama, again, another guy. Jun Akiyama is up there with Kurt Angle, the greatest rookie I've ever seen. His first year is nuts. But again, a guy who did it for still, he probably still could go at a reasonable level. He was still good a few years ago. But his work in All Japan, his work in 2000s Noah, 2004 against Kenta Kobashi as part of Kobashi's epic title reign. The one of the best tag matches in the 90s when he teamed with Misawa versus Johnny Ace and Steve Williams. Unbelievable stuff. And then in 2005 in Noah, when he teamed with Tenryu against Kobashi and Goshiozaki. Again, excellent. There's singles matches. He has the singles matches in the late 90s. There's a whole host of really great stuff there when he's young and energetic. His match with Danielson a few years ago was pretty cool. So yeah, again, the weird thing about Akiyama is he's kind of a guy who I feel like never fully reached his peak, despite the fact he had a great career. Whenever he got to the top, things just didn't really seem to feel right. But yeah, absolutely brilliant professional wrestler. In at 98, John Akiyama. 97, Owen Hart, the Black Heart. Owen was just, when I started watching wrestling, Owen was in that tag team with Coco Beware, High Energy. And when you're that age, the colour and all that of that tag team is really cool. It was in later years when I saw his Japan stuff. And you hear the dog's footstep sounds are coming in on the mic. I don't know. But there's so much great stuff in the short few years that I did watch on in real time. And when you're assessing someone in real time, it's very different than I think assessing them on tape study. Because Owen was endlessly entertaining throughout that kind of 7 odd years where I was watching him in real time. The WrestleMania 10 match with Brett. WrestleMania 10 for many years was my favourite WrestleMania. Partly because Bret won in the main event, and I was worried it was going to be Luger. I was a big Bret Hart fan as a kid. But yeah, the opening match with Bret at WrestleMania 10 was just sensational. Again, he was in that 10-man tag at Canadian Stampede 1997. I implore you, if you've not seen that, go out of your way to watch that match. Everyone in it is great. The crowd is insane. It's part of one of WWE's best ever storylines. And then the SummerSlam 94 steel cage match with Bret Hart. But Owen was also, that's his kind of the real highs he hit on pay per view. And the storyline with Bret and the build up to that was excellent as well, with the Bob Backlund and stuff and everything. There was just so much great stuff going on. Or was it Jerry Lawler? It was Jerry Lawler that time. But yeah, Owen's real strength was probably week to week television wrestling. When he was on TV on a regular basis, he was the one having probably the most interesting match on Raw every week, or most weeks whenever he was on. He was just super strong, super consistent week to week television wrestler, and a guy who was just easy to enjoy. 96 JBL, not Bradshaw, JBL. JBL is in here solely based on essentially 1 year of his career. I just picked the peak, ignored everything else. Because people might think I'm crazy to have him above John Akiyama or Bret Hart, or not Bret Hart, to have him above John Akiyama or Owen Hart, or even Balor, or even Dustin Rhodes. And the people I named that I left off, even people like Pete Dunne, like, do I think a lot of them are better wrestlers than JBL? Yeah, probably. But JBL's 05 run with Eddie into the Cena stuff is, I think, some of the best heel work, pure heel work done in WWE in the 33 years or whatever I'm watching. 34 years. It'll be 34 years coming up for SummerSlam when I started watching. Um, so his that run he had as JBL the heel from Eddie Guerrero into John Cena, I think, is one of the best heel runs WWE have had in that 35 years. So entertaining, but the matches were great. And look, some of his 90s tag stuff was really strong and really fun as well. But really, like, you're talking the Judgment Day 2005 I Quit match with Cena. You're talking the previous Judgment Day, actually, versus Eddie Guerrero. And then the Bull Rope match with Eddie Guerrero. And I wanted to check the year and date of that, or what show it was on, Great American Bash 04. That match was rated kind of low on Cage Match. Not a lot of people love that match, but like, I thought that was a fantastic match. Not as good as their other matches. But yeah, the stuff with Eddie was so entertaining. The stuff with Cena was super as well. So JBL is in there for literally 1 year, a 1 year peak. He's probably not the only wrestler that's on this list that's there for this kind of peak run that they had. 95, we got Chris Jericho. Some people probably think pretty low. I don't think so. I think this feels right for Jericho. There was earlier drafts of my top 100 where I had Jericho he never really went higher than 70. But when you see who's coming, you'll probably understand why I have him at 95. But yeah, like, look, Jericho's done everything. Everything. Japan, Mexico, Indies, ECW, like his crazy run in WCW, which is so entertaining. His run in multiple times in WWE is super entertaining. An absolute linchpin. One of the most important figures in the formation of AEW. I don't think AEW would be as successful as it is without Jericho being there. My favorite ever Jericho match was on Raw in 01 as part of the two-man power trip storyline with Austin and Triple H. When he teamed with Benoit in that tag match, I think it's the one where Triple H pulls his quads and guts it out, in fairness to him. But yeah, that tag match is tremendous. His new Wrestle Kingdom 12 match with Kenny Omega lit the world on fire. The match was, like, not amazing, but quite good. But there was just there's a lot of stuff on this list where it's just like it captured a feeling. And that match captured a feeling of anything is possible. And I think with Jericho, sometimes, he can be sloppy in the ring. Sometimes his character work is a bit overbearing. But there's certain times where Jericho can just capture lightning in a bottle. And how many people capture lightning in a bottle multiple times in their career? Jericho's one of those guys. And then again, look, here's another. This name's going to keep coming up on the list, but his Fall Brawl '97 match at WCW with Eddie Guerrero. Jericho has his matches with Naito were okay, but again, it was lightning in a bottle stuff. It was exciting. The Goldberg stuff in WCW, even though they didn't wrestle, was exciting. And the stuff with Malenko was endlessly entertaining. There's just so much to Jericho that uh, you know would probably feel like he should be higher on the list. But at the same time, did Shawn Michaels stuff in, was it '08? Amazing. But there's just a lot of periods of his career that um, are only okay. Maybe he's a victim of his longevity, perhaps. Number 94, Nick Bockwinkel, one of the greatest technical wrestlers of all time. The thing about Bach is his controlled segments in matches where he's working probably a wrist or something. He can do it for 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes and make it unbelievably compelling. It's also entertaining, but it's compelling. I don't think there's anyone who does that now in the way he could do it. His 1984 match with Jumbo Tsuruta in All Japan is excellent. The 1 hour match with Kurt Hennig in AWA in 1986. That's just such a steady escalation of pressure from Bockwinkel that it's like, to the modern eye, you're probably thinking this is a little bit slow, but I was never bored in a 1 hour match where that is quite a lot of holds and limb work, we'll say. Then there's a 1980 match in, I think it's All Japan with Billy. No, I think it's New Japan with Billy Robinson. Just see what those two guys could do together was unbelievable as well. Billy Robinson's a guy who probably could have put on the list, but I just felt that I didn't see enough matches of his. Anything I did see was an Inoki match and the Bockwinkel match. There was another tag match, I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, I just felt like I couldn't get hold of enough footage to really fit him in there. But yeah, Bockwinkel, he's awesome. If you haven't watched him, and just beware that it's going to be probably slower than what we're used to from modern sensibilities. But he was airtight in what he could do. Number 93, Minoru Suzuki, just relentlessly cool, and just brings that feeling of pure danger as well. His 2014 New Japan match with Styles is, it's also actually sneakily creative. But he's a guy who'll have the worst match you'll ever see and the best match you'll ever see. Shout out Butterbean. The 2004 match with AJ Styles, it's phenomenal. That AEW Rampage pre-show on a Friday night when Rampage stuck him and Danielson on YouTube as a pre-show to Rampage that was going against Raw, SmackDown. That was such a great match. And that was just one of the, this. Suzuki's been everywhere. You can go back to his shoot style stuff in the 90s and it's awesome as well. Or the 2017 match where he came back. He went to Noah, I think, and he came back he went to Noah with Suzuki going as part of an invasion angle from New Japan. And when he came back to New Japan 2017, I think they came back at New Year's Dash and he essentially challenged Okada for the title after Okada just beat Omega in the first match. And the next month they wrestled at the New Beginning show, wherever it was, Sapporo, or I don't know where it was, 2017. Him and Okada had an unbelievable match there as well as part of Okada's amazing title run. But yeah, Suzuki, you could dive into Suzuki's career and just find so much. And also, is there a guy who looks, particularly even when he was younger and now, even though they're two totally distinctive looks, I don't know if there's anyone who looks as much like he should be a pro wrestler as Minoru Suzuki. At 92, we got Masato Tanaka. A guy is still doing it. He's unbelievable. Someone who's just always bringing like crazy energy and excitement, and he's total badass. Um, the Big Japan match you had with Daisuke Sekimoto in 2018, it's on YouTube. It's awesome. The one night stand match, obviously from '05, the '05 one night stand match with Mike Awesome is my favorite Masato Tanaka match. It's also my favorite Mike Awesome match. Um, but yeah, that's obviously worth seeking out. But also, I would say his '99 ECW match with Mike Awesome as well, when both of them are a little bit younger. Particularly Mike Awesome in '99 was amazing. So I'd highly recommend the three of those. He's still doing stuff now with Hayabusa 2 over in 01, and apparently he's still amazing. I haven't seen him wrestle in a while, but yeah, he's still going on 01. Number 91, I have Darby Allin. Darby Allin's match catalogue in the last few years has just grown to ridiculous heights. Again, a super exciting wrestler, also extremely compelling, an absolute maniac, someone who brings, you can probably see a pattern emerging, but there's a real danger, a real authenticity with Darby when it comes to his work. Involved in one of my favourite retirement matches of all time, when he teamed with Sting versus the Young Bucks. Then his Dynamite 2023 TNT No Holds Barred title match versus Samoa Joe is incredible. It's insane. And his 2025 August 2025. This is in the build up to his I Quit Moxley match, which I wasn't a huge fan of, or maybe it was in the build up to the Coffin match, which I also wasn't a huge fan of. But his Falls Count Anywhere match on Dynamite with Claudio Castagnoli in that really kind of cool looking building they were running in Chicago for the residency. Just so many great matches with Darby, and he had him in this list before he finally, or won his title last week. Darby Allin is an amazing wrestler, really great babyface, so easy to buy into, and an absolute maniac. And he brings a danger, an authenticity, and an excitement that you don't really get too often anymore. Number 90, one half of the Young Bucks, Matt Jackson. I think one of the greatest tag teams of all time, certainly the greatest modern tag team, post 90s, I would say. Well, maybe post of this century. The greatest tag team of the century, I'm comfortable in saying. I'm not comfortable in saying 80s or 90s, but I am comfortable in saying the greatest tag team of the 21st century. Again, the most ridiculous catalogue of TV matches, certainly, of six mans and regular tags, it's just insane how they just consistently have good to very good to great matches on TV. Whenever they're on TV, they very rarely let you down in a TV match. And then when it comes to their pay-per-view record, like really, and in his last year in New Japan when he was doing the back deal, his selling was unbelievable with the supposedly injured back. But I think a lot of his best and most coherent stuff, because some of the stuff isn't coherent, and it is deserving of the criticism of being a quite spottish. But I think some of the best stuff has come in his AEW run, particularly in the tag match at Revolution 2020 versus Kenny and Adam Page, Hangman. At this, like I said, the Sting versus Sting and Darby in Sting's retirement match. What him and his brother Nick did that night was just incredible. The absolute stooging performance that they put on to give everything to Sting was exactly what any legend should be up against in the retirement match. And then the New Japan Strong Style Evolved 2018 match at Walter Pyramid versus the Golden Lovers, Kenny and Ibushi. Up to that point, I was pretty convinced, having watched that was the greatest tag match I'd ever seen. I don't know if I would say that now, but at that point in time, I was like, yeah, that's the greatest tag match I've ever seen. Number 89, Tomohiro Ishii, the King of August, the King of G1. I don't think there's anyone who has G1 match catalogue that Tomohiro Ishii has. He's still amazing in his mid 50s. I've seen him live. He's just a force of nature. But yeah, like for his match catalogue, I'm just recommending 3 G1 matches. 2018 versus Kenny Omega. Incredible. I think they have a 2016 match that's incredible as well. 2019 versus Shingo Takagi. Incredible. No, it wasn't 2016. The other Kenny one was. He has 2 amazing G1 matches, I think, Kenny off the top of my head. Maybe one was for a US title or something. And then August 2016 versus Okada. But he is the king of G1s. Consistently amazing in G1s. Number 88, Ricochet. And again, I actually think his most compelling run, some of his most noteworthy stuff is the indies before he ever went to WWE. He had some really good stuff in NXT, but I think his most compelling stuff is actually his most recent run. And I would put in there the AEW Dynasty 2025 triple threat with Kenny and Mike Bailey. That was incredible. He was in another triple threat with Ospreay and Takeshita at Wrestle Dream 24 when he was still a babyface. That was incredible. But I think his kind of probably the best, like, you know, he has 6-mans in PWG that were amazing and all that. But I think my favourite match of his career came from Double or Nothing last year when he had the stretcher match with Mark Briscoe. That was just such a throwback territories type deal. Mark Briscoe put on a babyface performance for the ages in that match. So yeah, I think, but yeah, Ricochet again, but he's also a guy who is consistently great, has done tremendous character work recently, and even in WWE when he was getting jack shit to do, he was still really, really good. At number 87, Shinya Hashimoto. Some of the best kicks in the history of wrestling. Also, more wrestlers should look like Shinya Hashimoto. Also, the intensity he brought to his matches. The Ricky Choshu match in 96, unbelievable. He has a match in 2 matches, actually, I think, in 95 with Regal. And they almost beggar belief. The clash of styles in the matches are amazing. But both guys were incredible in it. But Hashimoto's just, watching him is an experience in and of itself. And then the WAR 1993 match versus Tenryu. He has a couple of matches with Tenryu that will just blow your mind. He also has, look, there's a match catalog for Shinya Hashimoto. You can throw Muto on that in there as well. Like, it's deep and extensive and certainly worth diving into. But yeah, just an unbelievable wrestler. A lot of these New Japan 90s guys that I've rated lower than All Japan guys simply because I just kind of prefer All Japan at that time period, and I've watched a lot more of it. So I tend to kind of be a little bit biased towards that. But 1990s New Japan is really growing on me more recently. And like Hashimoto was a guy that I actually didn't really have in the top 100 until the last month or so. Even though, you know, I had watched quite a lot of Hashimoto, I was just more interested in All Japan in that time period. Speaking of All Japan in that time period, Terry Gordy, a perfect professional wrestler. And a big what if. Even though he's a big what if, even though his career was awesome. You know, like Terry has the Freebird stuff in the 80s, like incredible. You could break his career into 2 and give 2 different recommendations of different Freebird stuff, but also I think he peaked in early 90s All Japan, particularly in his tag team with Steve Williams. Miracle Violence Connection, one of my favorite tag teams ever. I think certainly one of the top 2 or 3 tag teams of the 90s. And in the 90s, there's some real amazing tag teams in that time period worldwide. But the Real World Tag League 91 match against Misawa and Kawada is Really one of the best tag matches you will ever see. The 88 Tag League one, where he's not tagging with Williams, he's actually tagging with Stan Hansen versus Tenryu and Kawada, is incredible as well. And then my favourite singles match of his is the May 93 match. Is it in the Champions Carnival? I can't remember. It might be against Kenta Kobashi. But just, we need more Stan or Terry Gordy's, because big, bulky, hard hitting, crowd connection, scary, great heel, great energy. So yeah, Terry Gordy at number 86. Took a 30-second smoke break. 85, we've got Pac, Neville. Again, super compelling character. We don't see him enough. I'd love to see him more. Constantly has bangers. I'm actually going to try and speed up. I'm about 30 minutes in. I've done 14 people. I'd recommend for Pac the Iron Man match on Dynamite just before Revolution 2020 versus Kenny Omega. Incredible match. AEW All Out 2024 versus Will Ospreay. And then his NXT takeover, the aforementioned match with Finn Balor. But he also has an unbelievable takeover match with Sami Zayn. So yeah, Pac is just unbelievable wrestler. You go back and watch the Dragon Gate stuff as well. Incredible. Next up, we have Dennis Condrey. Maybe the greatest heel tag wrestler of all time. Unbelievable timing. Just an absolute master of tag team psychology, a master of tag team structure. Really, even more so than a master. Maybe not pioneer isn't the right word. No, actually, fuck it, yeah. Maybe just a total pioneer of the modern tag team style. I don't know if there was anyone who was ever better than him at cheating, particularly when he was with Bobby Eaton. Those two guys just complemented each other perfectly. But there's multiple renditions of the Midnight Express, and he was great in all of them. And the work they did to piss off the crowd, so that when the babyface got the hot tag, maybe usually Ricky Martin would come in and look like the biggest star in the world. There's a reason the Midnights versus the Rock and Rollers and the Fantastics are some of the greatest tag matches ever, and a very large part of that reason is the work Dennis Condrey did as a heel, whether it be cheating, whether it be double teaming, whether it be ref distractions. There's just so much, and it's still used to this day. And it's not used as well. Well, there's some teams that do it quite well, but like it's perfectly logical as well. Nothing flashy about them, but just grounded in logic and made the crowds go absolutely wild for the babyface every time. Numerous matches. You can go to any Bobby Eaton versus Robert Gibson and Ricky Martin match, like literally any of them. You can go to his matches with Bobby Eaton versus Ron Garvin and Barry Windham. And then with the Fantastics as well. Type any of those into YouTube and you're going to watch like a clinic in tag team heel work from Condrey. Number 83, again, Steve Williams, the other half of what I think might be the greatest tag team, or certainly one of the greatest tag teams of the 90s. His WWE run didn't go so well, so he's probably not that well regarded by a lot of people. Particularly if you're in that generation where when he came into WWE and he lost in the that real boxing thing they did that was dumb as fuck. But his 93 singles match versus Kent Kobashi, incredible as well. I mentioned it already, but the Real World Tag League 91 match with Terry Gordy versus Misawa and Kawada is one of the greatest tag team matches you'll ever see. And there's another one where he's not teaming with Gordy this time, he's teaming with Johnny Ace. That piece of shit, against Misawa and Akiyama. Did I mention that for Akiyama's one? I meant to anyway if I didn't. But yeah, again, just an unbelievable tag match. So at 83, it's Steve Williams. Why isn't that changing? Okay, we're back up and running. 82, Nomichi Marufuji. One of the most innovative wrestlers you'll ever see. He's so good at like that. Again, maybe a pioneer of that striking style mixed with junior heavyweight flying style. Extremely exciting. Matches are paced perfectly. His kicking is, again, like Hashimoto, some of the best you'll ever see. But just incredibly innovative in terms of what matches you should watch. If you want to check out Marufuji, I would go with either of his 2006 Kenta matches. They're unbelievable. His '08 match in Ring of Honor versus Danielson, they have a really complementary style. Or again, his tag team when he teamed with Kenta before they became rivals. There's an unbelievable '03 tag match with Kenta versus Kanemaru and Hashi. Took a coughing fit. So yeah, Marufuji, exciting, innovative, precise, great timing. Check out Marufuji. Number 81, Yokozuna, one of my favorite big men ever. His run on top and his really great run was quite short. He's kind of in that JBL category. It's a shame what happened at WrestleMania 9. I think if he had held the title all the way to 10, Brett's win at 10 would have been even sweeter. He was the guy who made my hero at a young age feel like this like massively deserved champion. When Brett beat him at 10, he felt like he had toppled something unscalable. The excitement, his presence, excitement, moved great for a big guy. That thing on the USS ship thing they did with the body slam challenge and Luger coming along, things like that are just sorely lacking from modern wrestling. That fun factor, but also like just seeing him standing there beside Cornette and Fuji, it's unreal. I miss that kind of stuff. I go his best match, I think, is the Bret Hart WrestleMania 10 match. He had some good tag matches with both Bulldog and Owen Hart. There's one against Michaels and Diesel with Bulldog in '96 when he's ridiculously overweight, but it was still a really good match. He had a great match on Raw one time in '94, I think, with Randy Savage. But he's not really a match guy. Like, you're not going to get like the best matches ever from Yokozuna, but you are going to get this presence and just a really great big man. Really scary when you're a kid. I've always had a good graw, as we say in Ireland, or a love for Yokozuna's work because he's a really great worker. But he ain't Japanese. Number 80, Nigel McGuinness, Mr. CTE himself. Great technical wrestler, but also an unbelievable striker. A ferocious striker. Again, really exciting. When I was doing my match guide for this, I just wrote down Bryan Danielson 06, 07, 08. These guys wrestled a ridiculous amount of matches. I don't know what year the Pure Rules on was. Maybe it was 07. But these guys probably took years off each other's lives. I think that would probably be fair to say. Certainly took years off their careers. And I think McGuinness is the main cause of Danielson losing years off his career. And I think Danielson's probably the main cause of McGuinness losing years off his career. But that series of matches with Danielson on its own is unbelievable. He had another great match. Was it with Morishima? I think it was with Morishima. I'm not going to go searching now, but I have a recollection of that. But he's loads of great matches in that period of Ring of Honor. And it was such a major pop to see him back. And the stuff he did with Lee Moriarty since he's come back was really cool. I think he had a good match with Garcia. Shout out Lee Moriarty. Shane, I love that one if you're still listening this far into the video. 79, just Chris Hero, an absolute like indie icon. How can you not love Chris Hero? Chris Hero again has a lot of... I remember one of the first times I think I paid for an indie show, 2016 versus Trevor Lee, AAW. Those crazy early 2000s matches he did with Punk, but again, a massive innovator. Throws one of the best elbows in wrestling history. So great with match structure. So great with like escalation throughout the match. How he can move from striking battles into grappling, all that kind of stuff. Extremely entertaining, fluid, everything you want from a pro wrestler. 79, Shingo Takagi. I'm surprised he's not higher, actually, in hindsight. Why is Shingo 78? He's one of the best wrestlers you can watch ever. 2019, I think, was Best of the Super Juniors final versus Osprey. A classic. Or was that 2018? I can't remember, but it was, I think, could have been 2019 Best of Super Juniors. 2019 G1 versus Ishii. And the title match against Tanahashi after Tanahashi, or was Takagi champion at this stage? I think Takagi was champion at this stage, and he defended versus Tanahashi. One of Tanahashi's last truly great matches. Not the last, because his last match was truly great, but one of Tanahashi's last truly great matches, 2021 versus Shingo. Tito Santana, again, the guy you love growing up, but really, if you go back and watch Tito Santana versus Greg Valentine, 1984, 1985, and 1988, probably the best feud of the history of the Intercontinental title. His 91 match versus Ric Flair, that's available on YouTube. Great match as well. Tito Santana, great wrestler to watch. Look, doesn't have this insane deep catalogue. Some really good tag work as well, actually. He was in Team Strikeforce with Rick Martel, and then he went on to feud with Rick Martel after it. Rick Martel's heel turn was so great there, but they kind of pushed him into the model gimmick shortly afterwards, which I didn't love. But yeah, Tito Santana in Strikeforce, he was a great hot tag for Rick Martel, because Rick Martel was such a great seller. Tito would come in and hit the hot tag. Rick Martel didn't make my list. What was I doing? Rick Martel is great. Just now when I'm talking about him, like, these memories come flooding back. 76, Nick Jackson, again, the other half of the Young Bucks, what I think are the best tag team of the 21st century. Again, just, I basically said it all with Matt. Matt's such a great seller and that kind of stuff. Matt's a little bit hokey at times. So was Nick, I suppose. But Nick is just so dynamic. And Nick can do freakish things for a guy who doesn't look massively athletic. I named the same 3 matches for this: the Golden Lovers match at the New Japan show in Walter Pyramid in 2018, the Sting retirement match at Revolution 2024, and the probably my favorite, maybe my favorite tag match ever versus Kenny Omega and Hangman Adam Page at Revolution 2020. But you could throw in All Out 2021, the cage match versus the Lucha Bros. Incredible, iconic cage match. Super fun to watch. Always high energy. Even recently, their match with Okada and Takeshita was awesome tag match. At number 75, Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect, a perfect professional wrestler. You've got SummerSlam 91 versus Bret Hart. Great tag title or IC title match. You've got King of the Ring 93 versus Bret Hart. Fantastic match as well. And he has a Memphis match with Jerry Lawler in 88. That's incredible. I've mentioned the Bockwinkel match in 86. I really don't think us growing up in Ireland as WWF fans actually got the best of Mr. Perfect. We didn't see the best of Mr. Perfect, which is insane, because he is a character that we all love and remember. And yet, I don't think we saw the best of him. I think his best work was done with Lawler and Bockwinkel in the AWA and that alliance with Memphis in the late 80s. Now, the Bret Hart stuff is amazing as well, but actually I think we probably missed out on a lot of his best work over here. 74, we've got Kenta, the other half of Marufuji and Kenta. Again, one of the most innovative wrestlers of the 21st century. An absolute menace. He is a menace. He's the first of many menaces on this list. I get very menace heavy at certain points of this top 100. His 06 stuff with Marufuji, again, I said the 2 matches incredible. He went to Ring of Honor throughout 05 and 06. His final Battle 05 match versus Loki is awesome. Loki didn't make my list. And his 06, he's an 06 Ring of Honor match. I think it was that Man Up 06 maybe. I could be wrong on the pay-per-view, but against Danielson, that's just blow your mind. They kill each other. A lot of WWE fans probably think he's not that great because they saw severely diminished version of him. AEW fans also, if you watch a bit of New Japan, that's a severely diminished version of him. But he's up to some of his old tricks again in Noah. But yeah, an absolute menace and incredibly innovative. 73, we got Jay Briscoe. This is a funny one because, spoiler alert, both Briscoes are rated higher than both Jacksons. But I think the Young Bucks are a better tag team in the 21st century. I probably have the Briscoes at 2 and FTR at 3, or possibly interchange FTR and Briscoes. Jay Briscoe, unbelievable wrestler. The December 2022 dog collar match, not long before his unfortunate passing. I think it was Final Battle 2022 versus FTR in the dog collar match. But that whole trilogy is incredible. That dog collar match is actually, it's special. It's a special match. The 07 Ladder War versus Steen Erico, Kevin Steen and El Generico. Sick stuff. And then the steel cage match he had in 04, I think was part of Joe's iconic title reign. Again, incredibly special. Sorely missed. Such a shame he never got that national TV exposure. Number 72, The Undertaker. Again, just a guy who we kind of... I started watching WWE shortly after he debuted. I watched him in real time for, close to 30 years, from 92 up to his retirement. There were times where I thought he was absolute rubbish, but there are also times where I thought he was great. And I'm a guy who has said publicly he's overrated. That's because people put him as like a, what do you call that thing, a Mount Rushmore top 4 type of guy. He's not. He's a great wrestler. He's one of the best big men ever. Not the best. 98 King of the Ring versus Mankind. Hell in a Cell match. Unbelievable. Oops. Didn't mean to do that. Go back one. You know who's next. The Hell in a Cell match versus Michaels. The 98 King of the Ring versus Mankind. 97 versus Michaels, Hell in a Cell. And his 2006 No Way Out match versus Kurt Angle. Awesome match as well. You might pick his his 2 WrestleMania matches with Shawn Michaels as indicators of his greatness. I think they're really good matches. I don't think they're great matches. But again, yeah, just someone who's always there and brought excitement. Undertaker matches felt important. Number 71, talking about feeling important, John Cena. John Cena is probably underrated as an in-ring wrestler. His 07 Last Man Standing match with Umaga, I think the best match of his career. I love that match. The 2011 Money in the Bank match with CM Punk is obviously iconic. Really great match as well. I need to stop doing that. And his SummerSlam 2016 and Royal Rumble 2017 matches with AJ Styles are great. They obviously completed the trilogy. Maybe they had a match in between, I don't know. As part of his retirement tour, and they had that kind of greatest hits style match. It was really weird. But Shane loved it, I think. It was a good match too. But yeah, John Cena is actually a great wrestler. His Kevin Owens match, when Kevin Owens was brought up from the main roster, was a really cool match. And he brought a lot of excitement. And I know there was years where it was like, this is the most boring shit ever. The Randy Orton stuff was just dreadful. You know what I mean? Like, who cares? But yeah, John Cena is great. Number 70, Zack Sabre Jr. Talk about style and identity, and maybe you could say that he lacks versatility or whatever, but also he takes on a lot of different people, and he does manage to adapt to what other people are doing. He's been great for years now. I think my favorite match of Zack's is New Beginning 2024 versus Danielson in New Japan. The AEW match was really good too, but I thought that one was better. I thought he really reached his peak when he was working in both matches with Hiroki Goto in 2025, particularly the second one, the Tanahashi Jam match. That was incredible. And then there's a Rev Pro match from just before the pandemic, literally like a month or 3 weeks before the world shut down. That it was amazing. And also his best opponent is actually probably Tanahashi. They've had so many matches that are like their styles blend amazing. Like Tanahashi being more flashy, but also a great storyteller, and Zack just grounding him constantly. Like they've probably had 8, not in like unbelievable all time great matches, but like 8 really, really good matches. From one technical master to another, William Regal, really one of the great technicians of our time. Great in ring psychology, elite technical work, constantly great character work as well. The snarl of the 90s, the blue blood, the stiff upper lip, into that stuff in the 2000s, King, William Regal, all that. Like, there's just consistent greatness, and it's so many good matches as well. The Fit Finlay stuff in WCW was amazing. His 95 match with Hashimoto was amazing. He was in part of that 4-way tag ladder match at Armageddon '06. That was incredible. He has a match with Larry Zbyszko, and I actually think Larry Zbyszko kind of sucks in ring. Yeah, Larry Zbyszko sucks in ring. He's worse as a commentator, but he sucks in ring. Um, but yeah, Regal was amazing with him in their '94 match in WCW. And again, Regal is so much more than just matches. Like every Regal match you watch, even if the match itself isn't amazing, he does something amazing in it. He's not the only wrestler like that on the list, where like the match itself might be amazing, but his performance is amazing, or his performance is captivating. Um, Number 68, the greatest babyface tag wrestler of all time, Ricky Martin. The greatest mullet in the history of wrestling, Ricky Martin. Look, I've already mentioned the stuff with Bobby Eaton and Dennis Condrey. The great, just the best tag matches of their era. And really, like Bobby or Ricky Martin is maybe the best hot tag of all time. The 87 stuff versus Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane, and again the 86 stuff versus Arn and Ole Anderson. Consistent, like, and just when Ricky Martin hits the hot tag, or when he's, you know, I love his hot tag, but also in the build up to the hot tag as the babyface and Pearl, the way he could elicit sympathy is just incredible. He might be better at that than he is a hot tag. I don't know, but yeah, the best babyface tag wrestler of all time, in my opinion, Ricky Martin. Number 67, Roddy Piper. And again, Roddy Piper isn't exactly going to be defined by how high end his top matches are. You know, Zack Sabre Jr. has more high end great matches than Roddy Piper. But Roddy Piper just has a cool factor. You know, you could look to WrestleMania 8 Intercontinental title match with Bret Hart and how he was able to emote that turn. Amazing. There's a 1990 match, I think I found it on YouTube, with Mr. Perfect. That's again incredible. But you know, his Magnus Opus? Opus Magnus? Magnus? Is Magnus on my list? The 83 work with Greg Valentine, particularly their dog collar match is really the peak of his career. Not the peak of his career, the peak of his in-ring career, but he was also such a great foil for Hogan. And he was one of the only guys who could politic with Hogan. So you just absolutely have to respect that. Number 66, Tetsuya Naito. I must have been thinking of, actually, if I look at this period, I think this period where I was just thinking, who are the coolest bastards ever? And I lumped them all together. Because I go from Piper to Naito to the next guy, who are just ridiculously cool. His 2016 and 2017 matches with Kenny Omega are off the charts. 2023, it was a G1 match, 2023, with Ospreay, again, off the charts. And the final, like, the coronation of a years long story, where he finally triumphed at the Tokyo Dome versus Okada in 2020. Just amazing stuff. But again, more than just he was great in ring, but he's more than that. He just so cool, clear character, always on. He's always on. He is a worker to the nth degree. Number 65, Katsuyori Shibata, one of the biggest badasses and one of the coolest bastards in the history of wrestling. Obviously, the best match, one of my favorite matches ever, certainly top 10, the 2017 match with Okada where he broke his brain. It's a pity that happened, but just so cool and such a badass. Such an interesting career as well. Check out his matches with Ishii, and then his 2014 match, I think, was a title challenge versus Tanahashi in 2014, is incredible as well. When he came back from his hiatus, but Shibata is one of the coolest wrestlers ever. 64 is Barry Windham. Barry is essentially the wrestler that people will tell you that Randy Orton is. Everything they say about Randy Orton and how supposedly great Orton is true about Barry Windham. The January 87 NWA match versus Ric Flair, when he tagged with Ron Garvin versus the Midnight Express. Again, that was actually in 87 as well. And then he was part of what I think is the best War Games match ever, the 92 rendition, with, what was him and stable called at the time? The Dangerous Alliance. What a stable. But Barry Windham is essentially everything that people pretend Randy Orton is. 63, we got Sting, the Icon. Best match of his career is his retirement match with Darby Allin versus the Young Bucks. He's also, spoiler alert, he is also in that War Games 92 match versus the Dangerous Alliance, and his I think it's Starrcade 92 or 92 Starrcade versus Vader is awesome as well. Again, Sting isn't one of the guys, he's not like one of the best in-ring wrestlers of all time, but he is certainly cool, iconic, has great longevity, has a great retirement run, and is a guy that you just gravitate towards. Yeah, he shit the bed at Starrcade 97 versus Hogan, but still just such a cool wrestler. 62, Kurt Angle. People are going to argue this is low. I don't think so. I think Kurt Angle is amazing, don't get me wrong. I love everybody on this list. I have a Kurt Angle at 62. A guy as well. It's weird. For being as great as he is, I've said this about Brett before as well, he doesn't have that many like unbelievable all-time great matches. He has some unbelievable all-time great performances on his side of things. I think possibly I mentioned a WWE tag match earlier, the two-man power trip versus Ben Knight and Jericho, but I think there's another tag match featuring Angle and also Redacted Benoit from No Mercy 2002 versus Edge and Rey Mysterio Jr. part at the final of the SmackDown Tag Team Tournament that was running at the time. I think is when they might have split the titles or something. That is the other option for best WWE tag match I've ever seen. So there's that. Then he has, look, the WrestleMania 19 main event versus Brock fell flat because of obvious reasons, with Brock smashing his head into the ground, so the finish felt off. But they did another match on was it an Iron Man match on SmackDown in 03 that was amazing. And then I honestly I think maybe the best Falls Count Anywhere match in WWE history, or certainly one of King of the Ring 2001 versus Shane McMahon. Unbelievable. Great wrestler. The stuff with Samoa Joe and TNA was great. The guy had two great careers. He's, as a promo, he's amazing. As a character, he's amazing. At comedy, he's amazing. In ring, he's amazing. Being legit, he's amazing. Possibly even the fact he was good at comedy might have actually hurt him at times. But yeah, Kurt, just incredibly entertaining. 61, Dynamite Kid, gigantic piece of shit. But his 83 match with Tiger Mask in New Japan defined the next 40 years of wrestling. His tag work with Davey Boy against the Hart Foundation in WWF is incredible, and they took that, they took that tag act on the road.
and went to All Japan. Great matches with the Malenkos, Dean and Joe. Yeah, but look, Dynamite Kid's a gigantic piece of shit, but he was just an awesome wrestler. Number 60, Greg Valentine. And when I was making this list, I was like, Greg Valentine has two of the best feuds of the 80s. He has the Tito Santana feud, and he has the Piper feud. So, the guy that you wouldn't think is this amazing wrestler just so happens to have two of the best feuds of a whole decade. And he's great in both of them. Might be a little bit slow. He might be a little bit one-dimensional at times, but his matches build perfectly. He's great at building feuds, particularly when he was a bit younger in those 83, 84, 85 years. Again, for Irish wrestling fans who grew up with WWF primarily, he was probably way past his best by the time we got to him. But certainly, if you go on and search out his stuff with Tito Santana and with Roddy Piper, it'll blow your mind. He's amazing. 59, Mystico. This is my first luchador. There's a few more to come, I can tell you that, lads. Mystico at 59. So I just think Mystico's cool, mainly. He's really cool. You can go back and look at his Negro Casas. When he tagged with Negro Casas CMLL 06, that 06 run, you know, the one where he won Wrestler of the Year in The Observer, which in some ways was such a mad thing for the time because it was either American or Japan had dominated that category. Really, America had dominated the category. His 92nd anniversary, CMLL 92nd anniversary match versus MJF, Mask first title match last year, I thought was match of the year. His 05 feud in both when it comes to singles, but also in multiple different tag matches versus Inferno is incredible. Again, like he's smooth in the ring, he's really good in the ring. Sometimes he has to be pushed to be great, but when he is great, he is great. But a little bit of the JBLs about this of I'm judging him on two peaks. And, you know, we had this conversation, can you have two peaks? Yes, because Mystico had two peaks, Shane. Number 58, Andre the Giant. You can just think about Andre, right? There isn't that many, again, great matches. But you could just watch like a 3-minute clip of an Andre match, and you'll probably see one of the funniest things you'll ever see in a wrestling ring, particularly when he was doing those handicap squash matches. Really funny, really charming. The main event of WrestleMania 3 versus Hogan is awesome. It's the ultimate spectacle in wrestling, and it doesn't get the credit it deserves because it's Hogan and Andre, and neither of them are in-ring masters. But you know, they're not going to do the coolest moves or anything like that. But you watch that crowd in that match. They manipulated that crowd to absolute perfection. And really, what is wrestling other than manipulating the crowd with your actions in the ring? So they did basically half nothing when he falls on Hogan. It's a great moment when Hogan first tries to do the first body slam. Yeah, obviously it's not like this 30-minute classic, but the crowd ate it up. You watch him in New Japan. His match with Stan Hansen is amazing in 1981. But yeah, Andre's in many ways more of a moments guy. Next one's going to be controversial. I have MJF at 57. The most recent debutant to make my list, the youngest on my list, is MJF. He's a master storyteller. He's not the best in-ring wrestler, but he's had great matches. He makes you care. He's a fantastic heel. He's just really, really, really good. I'm surprised by myself for ranking him so high, but when you actually break it down, the Revolution, he's Mr. Revolution actually. In the same way that Ishii is Mr. G1 Climax, MJF is Mr. Revolution. You've got 2023 versus Bryan Danielson, maybe the best Iron Man match I've ever seen. Incredible. You've got, I just mentioned his 92nd CMLL 92nd anniversary Mask versus title match versus Mystico, where he played the greatest heel in the business for that one night. We, we his heel work against Mystico was top drawer. Obviously, he's incredible on the mic. Sometimes, though, I think he's a bit hokey on the mic. Yeah, probably is sometimes. And then Revolution 2022, yeah, the dog collar match with CM Punk. I genuinely think that's the best match of both men's careers. Not because, sure, Punk isn't great in ring either. But they are, because they just get the crowd, and that's what MJF does. He gets the crowd. Yeah, he had 2023, which, to be honest, was a cluster. Fuck. It was there was so much rubbish there, but he's really found himself again. The work with Hangman Page over the last year was really good. Even though I didn't love their Texas Tech match recently, but I did love their two 2025 matches in the build-up to Page winning the title. Great wrestler. Give the man his due. Not GWE. 56, Kevin Owens, Kevin Steen. Again, another guy, super exciting, extensive match catalogue. The fight without honor versus El Generico in 2010. Their feud is iconic. His battleground match in 2016 versus also El Generico, but this time as Sami Zayn in one of the best WWE matches of 2010s. The match versus the Briscoes at Ladder Wars and Ring of Honor, a sickening spectacle. Incredible mic man, extremely cool, pisses off Cornette, like guy who should have been pushed harder as well. I love Kevin Owens, and I really want him to come back. And there's a lot of years in recent times where whenever Kevin Owens has been put at the top of the card and been given the time and been put into positions to do great work, I always think this guy's the best at this in the world. Like multiple times over the last few years on a given night, I'm like, is he the best in the world? He's always up there. He's unbelievable. 55, Kota Ibushi, a guy you know I love. So Kota Ibushi, his G1 final in 2018 with Tanahashi is really one of the best matches I've ever seen. There's Tokyo Dome 2020, the main event, the first night versus Okada, incredible match. And then the Walter Pyramid match where he teams with Kenny versus Omega is an incredible match. His match catalogue is too ridiculous to name. He's so cool. He's a maniac. How do you not love Kota Ibushi? Maybe his legacy has been tainted a little bit in the last few years by the work he's been trying to do through injuries. He just looks shot. But that happens to everyone. 54, Mark Briscoe. A tremendous babyface. Who knew that Mark Briscoe... Honestly, I think this guy could be pushed as a world champion. So compelling on the mic. Amazing character. So great at getting you on side and on board with him. Again, to talk about matches, you've got that double dog collar match versus FTR, Final Battle 2022. You've got, I've already mentioned it, stretcher match with Mark Briscoe from Double or Not in 2025. He was one of the best wrestlers in the world in 2025 without a doubt, because a match that I don't hear spoke about too often anymore is the Tums and Tax match he had with MJF at All Out 2025. Unbelievable. I've mentioned the Ladder Wars versus Steen Erico. He has matches with Jay Briscoe that are badass. Great wrestler, amazing babyface. Has never got pushed at the level he should. 53, Claudio Castagnoli, FKA Cesaro. 2000 Death Before Dishonor, 2007 or 8 versus Morishima. A tremendous match. When AEW and CMLL started doing their deal together, him, Moxley, Matt Sydal for some reason, and Danielson went down to wrestle Mystico Ultimo Guerrero, who was mid-50s at the time. He's still mid-50s now, it's not that long ago. Blue Panther, who was 60s at the time, and Volador Jr., who probably wasn't that young, in an 8-man tag, and it was exceptional. He is totally underrated as a tag team worker. Totally underrated. You've got the Kings of Wrestling tag team with Hero. You've got The Bar. You've got the TJ Wilson tag team. The Bar with Sheamus. What a tag team.
the TJ Wilson tag team. I feel like I'm forgetting a tag team with him. Great singles wrestler, great tag wrestler. His Ring of Honor run with the title in Tony's Ring of Honor was great. He has been exceptional in the various Anarchy in the Arena and modern crappy war games matches he does. He's a guy again who there is a lot of singles matches there, particularly before he went to WWE and a lot of when he was given the chance in WWE and in AEW. He does have great singles matches. The one I mentioned earlier on with Darby Allin, he's an amazing base. You put a high flyer in around him, there's nobody better to put. If you have a high flyer that you want to get over, there's nobody better to put him with than Claudio Castagnoli. Sami Zayn, FK, El Generico. I mentioned already his match with Adrian Neville at Takeover or Evolution 2014. Evolution. The ladder matches, the ladder war match with the Briscoes, the fight without honor with Kevin Steen, the battleground match with Kevin Steen, the most important member of the bloodline. He got that story over. The Johnny Knoxville match at WrestleMania might be the greatest celebrity match in the history of wrestling, Kaufman and Jerry Lawler aside. But honestly, maybe on that level, the Johnny Knoxville Sami Zayn match at WrestleMania is incredible. Number 51, Walter, also known as Gunter. Like what Tim said, like this guy, get your man that he's back. He's the perfect professional wrestler. Perfect professional wrestler. Put him at the top of your company, have him be your monster heel. NXT UK match in October 2020 in an empty warehouse versus Ilya Dragunov. One of the most sickening, most visceral matches. He's such a visceral wrestler. WrestleRama 2018 OTT versus Jordan Devlin. Out of this world, the way he sucked the life out of that building. Beating Jordan Devlin for the OTT world title that night. I love the rematch when Devlin beats him, but I prefer the match that Walter wins. There was less shenanigans and chicanery in the first one, but I do love the second one as well. The OTT 4th anniversary match with Will Ospreay. His like even his retirement match with Cena was great. The retirement match with AJ Styles was great. I thought like there's just so much with him. The tag matches that who was that trip? That Sheamus and was it Sheamus and Drew triple threat match a few years ago? Unbelievable. And he has a singles match I think with Sheamus, which was incredible as well. But like, yeah, I think under you like it's crazy, right? Because he's retired John Cena, he's retired AJ Styles, but he's also potentially underutilized in WWE. He should be your top heel. The Chad Gable matches were amazing. The Sami Zayn matches were amazing. One of the coolest heels ever. And I don't mean like cool heel Kevin Nash. I mean like he's a guy that should be terrorizing the babyface at the top of your company until somebody topples him. The Pete Dunne or Tyler Bate, sorry, the Tyler Bate match, awesome. Number 50, Sasha Banks, the greatest North American female wrestler ever. Ever. The NXT Takeover match with Bayley, Takeover Brooklyn match with Bayley is a certified classic. Her WrestleMania 37 match with Bianca Belair is incredible. Her AW All in Texas match with Tony Storm is incredible. She's doing things that she's just so exciting. Terrible promo, terrible in segments. But when it comes to putting together matches, I love her matches. Great heel as well. Yeah, greatest women's North American wrestler, Sasha Banks. 49. I don't know how he's so low. I was just when I was making the list, and like this top 50 is just ridiculous. Like, but 49, Jushin Thunder Liger. Go back to the Super J Cup 94. Great Sasuke. He tags against with Murahama against Kenta and Marufuji in 03 in Noah. The War Super J Cup 95, he has probably the best match of Ultimo Dragon's career, or certainly top 2 or 3 match of Ultimo Dragon's career. But again, he's so much more than that. He's literally an iconic junior heavyweight. In some ways, like as a pure junior heavyweight, probably,
maybe the best ever when it comes to pure junior heavyweight. Had a really cool retirement run that was thoroughly enjoyable. But yeah, Jushin Liger 49, 48, Hangman Adam Page, one of the great Texas death match workers ever. A guy who has just unbelievable crowd connection. So layered, so nuanced, great in ring, hard hitting, emotive, great tag worker, great hot tag. But really, his strength is when it comes to Texas Death. The Swerve Strickland match at AEW Full Gear 2023. Amazing. I think, was it on Dynamite, actually, the Moxley one? Or, I know they did a singles match where he got the concussion on Dynamite, and then they came back and did the Texas Death. It's not the All In one. The All In one is great, but that's not generally, like, it's great, but it's generally not my favorite match type. The Avengers type, Avengers Endgame, everyone comes and does stuff match. But the one with Swerve Strickland is near perfection. The Revolution 2020 tag match with Kenny versus the Bucks is perfection. And his 1 hour draw with Danielson from Winter's Coming 2021 is incredible. That was Danielson let off the leash after leaving WWE, and Hangman Page being this uncertain champion, and he plays that uncertainty so well. He plays the lack of confidence so well. He plays growth so well. Incredible worker. 47, the Great Muta, Keiji Muto. Just a mad career and a Hogan level politicker, but a great wrestler. His All Japan match versus Tenryu in '91 is incredible. New Japan or All Japan? Was that shortly after Tenryu left? I can't remember. His G1 Climax match versus Vader in '91 is incredible. But my favorite match of his career is when he is Great Muta in the War promotion, Tenryu's promotion versus Tenryu, when they had one of the wildest matches you will ever see. In October '96 War. It's on YouTube. It is incredible. Next up, 46, Tully Blanchard. Amazing singles worker, amazing tag worker. Magnum TA feud in '85 that culminated the I Quit Steel Cage match at Starrcade '85 is unbelievable. Starrcade '84 match with Ricky Steamboat is unbelievable. And then one of my favourite tag matches ever, not particularly for the work in the ring, but for how the angle is built into the match, with him and Arn Anderson versus Barry Windham and Lex Luger. When Windham turns on Luger, it's on YouTube as well. NWA April '88. The match itself is great. Windham is exceptional in this match as well, and Windham turns on Luger. And Tully was just cool for so long as well. Tully has great matches into the '90s. 45, Dump Matsumoto. In some ways, kind of a JBL thing here as well, where I don't know, it's a bit longer than the. No, it's in some ways kind of 85, 86. Some of the most chaotic. Chaotic. She is the epitome of a chaotic heel who just lives on the edge, danger. The hair versus hair, both matches in August '85, November '86 versus Chigusa Nagayo. Both hair versus hair matches are incredible. She was also a great tag worker. She's a few matches against the combination, the Crush Gals, Nagayo and Linus Asuka. There's the Bull Nakano one where she teams with Bull Nakano. But my favourite one is when she teams with Crane Yu. Again, as part of her Chigusa Nagayo feud, but just an utterly chaotic force of nature as a heel, who just weapons, crowd gone nuts, faction of lunatics around her. One of the great heels of the '80s in either men's or women's wrestling. And speaking of a great heel, and actually it's a good that these two are back to back, because this guy is the ultimate El Satanico at 44, the ultimate controlled heel. like almost there was times where obviously matches turned chaotic or whatever with El Satanico and get bloody, but he it felt like he was like calmness personified, always in control. The El Dandy hair match in CMLL in '91 was out of this world. Go back to EMLL and his work with Atlantis, matches with Jerry Estrada, the Atlantis matches in mid '80s, Jerry Estrada again in the early '90s. But El Stanico retired like 2 weeks ago. I'm talking about he was having classics in 1984. 1984. I was born in '87. This guy was having classics with Atlantis in 1984, and he retired a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, just pure control as a heel, calmness, terrifying. One of the best heels you'll ever see work. 43, CM Punk. Thing about Punk is when Punk is at the top and when he's on, modern WWE, it's weird. It doesn't suit Punk, in my opinion. He's supposed to be authentic, and the product isn't authentic. Punk's supposed to be real, but when Punk is real, there's nothing better than a build up to a Punk match. And he's sloppy in the ring, and he's always been sloppy in the ring, but it doesn't matter because Punk has an ability to make you believe in him. Whether he's a heel or a face, we haven't seen him heel now in, 13 years. And he yearned for it almost. Again, I think the best match of his career is a dog collar match with MJF at Revolution 2022. Is it the best worked match of his career? No. There's better. But that match just felt so special. Even the Miseria Canter entrance, all of it felt like, yeah, he came back at All Out the previous year, but it felt like when he got into the MJF stuff, even, look, don't get me wrong, the Eddie Kingston match is unbelievable from, I think it was Full Gear 2021. But when he got the MJF stuff, it was like, oh, Punk is back. Punk is back. Obviously, the Money in the Bank match with Cena in 2011. He's a wonderful Danielson match. I think it's at SummerSlam, maybe 2013 or something. I can't remember. And then a series of matches with Samoa Joe and 04 Ring of Honor. A series of great matches. But my favourite one is the second one. 42, just mentioned him, El Dandy. One of the best technical wrestlers you'll ever see. But when he had to get aggressive, he could. I've mentioned the El Satanico hair versus hair match in 91. I think his best opponent for him is Negro Casas, but also one of my favourite matches that I've seen recently in the last few months is a triple threat match he had with Negro Casas and El Hijo del Santo. And El Dandy and El Hijo del Santo are the faces, Del Santo, are the faces, and they're left in a 1v1 hair versus mask match. And El Dandy kind of plays the heel in it, and it's unbelievable. On such a crisp worker as well. Like, all his intentions are so clear all the time. So easy to watch. Great perm. Number 41, Aja Kong. Again, in some ways a chaotic heel, but, not on the level of pure chaos of the aforementioned Dump Matsumoto. But I think she's one half of one of the great Joshi Feuds programs of all time, the 94-95 work with Manami Toyota. Manami Toyota came across as the greatest heel in the universe as a result of her work in this program with Aja Kong. He was a great foil for Miko Satomura when Miko Satomura was coming on the scene. When she tagged with Bull Nakano versus Akira Kuto and Shinobi Kandori. Just unbelievable stuff. And there's more. Actually, I might save some for later on because she has a program with someone else that's incredible as well. That other person is coming later. One of the best brawlers in the history of wrestling at number 40 is LA Park. Matches on YouTube from 2016 versus Rush. It'll blow your mind. There's an 01 match on YouTube versus El Hijo del Santo that'll blow your mind. He was
excellent in WCW in the mid 90s and should have been pushed to the top. He should have been brought into WWE to feud with Steve Austin because they're two of the greatest brawlers of all time and they would have made magic. Austin needed programs after Austin had the Dude Love program in '98. He needed great brawling heels, and LA Park would have been perfect for that. Even in MLW in 2019, he has an insane, I don't know if it's no holds barred or whatever, mad brawl with Jacob Fatu in 2019. Unbelievable wrestler. The first of the four pillars of heaven that we have on the list here is Akira Taue. Taue, part of the best tag team of the 90s with Kawada, certainly the best heel tag team of the 90s with Kawada, but also an incredible singles wrestler. You have the All Japan Champions Carnival match in '95 versus Masao, which I think is probably the peak of his singles career. He's part of one of the best six mans I've ever seen. When he joins Sarutagun and he teams with Jumbo Saruta and Fuji versus Kobashi Misawa and Kawada in 1990. The match is like 54 minutes and it is unbelievable. And actually, the two stars of that match for me are Kawada and Taue. And the match was built so to really get Taue over as a heel. And then you've got the series of matches in the mid 90s when he's tagging with Kawada versus Misawa and Kobashi, versus Misawa and Akiyama. Think, yeah, and then versus Kobashi and Akiyama. There's just this series of tag matches that'll blow your mind. Number 38, Bobby Eaton. Again, part of that 92 War Games match. This guy's honestly the cleanest, smoothest wrestler you'll see. I mentioned his tag team with Dennis Condrey, the Midnights in Mid South, or just various territories actually. Did it start in World Class and go to Mid South, or I can't remember. But teaming with Dennis Condrey, particularly versus Rock and Rollers, he was great in the early 90s as part of the Dangerous Alliance. He was a great teaming with Stan Lane versus Bobby Fulton and Tommy Rogers. Just like an almost perfect professional wrestler. 37, Blue Panther. I think maybe my favorite Mask versus Mask match of all time when he takes on Viano 5 at the CML 75th anniversary show in 2008. And he was like late 40s then. Unbelievable. With Atlantis in the late 90s. And even his submission match with Danielson in 2024 in his 60s was awesome. And reports are that he had a great, super fun match this past weekend at WrestleMania weekend versus Ultimo Guerrero. 36, you've got Double A, Arn Anderson. I've already mentioned that tag match, Aaron and Tully versus Barry Windham and Lex Luger from Mid-Atlantic, April 88. You got that six-man tag around the month before that. That's part of that program as well, where he teams with Flair and Tully against Lex, Barry Windham and Sting. He's also part of that War Games 92 match. But again, the thing about him, the TV title runs and all that, he is literally the model of consistency. He was just awesome in everything he did. So at 36, it is Arn Anderson. Number 35, AJ Styles. Again, picture of excellence for decades. Multiple great careers rolled into one. Part of the iconic triple threat match, some would say the greatest triple threat of all time, versus Christopher Daniels and Samoa Joe on Unbreakable 05. The Wrestle Kingdom 10 match with Shinsuke Nakamura is awesome. He has the 2014 match with Minoru Suzuki that I mentioned earlier. He has the series with John Cena, SummerSlam 16, Rumble 17. An absolute joy to watch consistently over the years. Recently retired. His retirement match versus Gunter, while being a bit anticlimactic, was still awesome. 34, Rey Mysterio Jr. Well, what's there to say about Rey? Like, undersized, super compelling, flashy but smooth, a trailblazer, 5'4" guy who's the WWE World Heavyweight Champion. WCW Bash the Beach 96 versus Psychosis, Halloween Havoc 97, title versus Mask with Eddie. Part of that, what I think is probably the greatest tag match in WWE history, where he teamed with Edge versus Benoit and Angle at No Mercy 02.
we've done a full podcast on Rey Mysterio and his legacy. Check that out. We glaze Rey Mysterio for hours, or a couple of hours, probably an hour and a half. 33, Will Ospreay. Best matches for me. Look, there's his match catalog is as deep as anybody's. You know, I like some maximalism in my wrestling. I'm a bit of a maximalist. Will Ospreay is pure maximum when it comes to wrestling. He's over the top, verging on ridiculous at times, but he is a great seller. He always gets the crowd into his matches. Some people say he does too much. I disagree. I think he's incredible. In fact, I think he's the 33rd greatest wrestler of all time. The 2017 or the Wrestle Kingdom 17 match with Kenny Omega's off the charts. The Best of the Super Juniors final in 2019 versus Takagi is off the charts. The Danielson match Dynasty 2024 is off the charts. When he tagged with Tanahashi versus the Golden Lovers, that was incredible. He's great at creating moments, but he's just like, he is ADHD in wrestling form, and it's awesome. 32, Bull Nakano, January 91 in All Japan Women's versus Kira Hakuto. They have just incredible chemistry. The match I mentioned where she tags with Aja Kong versus Hakuto and Kandori, her 93 JWP match against Devil Masami is insane. But more than it, just the presence that she has. And not like this total chaotic presence. She was like an unbelievable wrestler. So yeah, 32, Bull Nakano. Go type Bull Nakano versus Akira Kuto onto YouTube and you will have a whale of a time. At number 31, we have HBK, the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, Mr. WrestleMania, Mr. I Lost My Smile, Mr. My Back is Sore, but also Mr. has a lot of very good wrestling matches. And my favourite Mankind, my favourite Shawn Michaels matches are with Mankind. WWF Mind Games 96, sensational match. The aforementioned Hell in a Cell match with The Undertaker, Bad Blood 97. The WrestleMania 21 match with Kurt Angle. Probably Survivor Series 97 with Brett until the Montreal Screwjob finish is an exceptional match. Trending to be their best match together, and I think trending to be one of the best WWE matches of the 90s, WWF matches of the 90s. Think about Shawn, I probably don't rate his matches as highly as other people. Do like a lot of the matches, as I mentioned. But the thing about Shawn Michaels is, and there's some more guys on this list and gals, but mainly guys to be perfectly fair on this list, who's when a big match was announced, it felt like an event. It felt like something that was necessary to tune in for or watch live. There's very few people quite on the level like that as Shawn Michaels that you feel like you need to watch live. There's someone else later who has something similar, but I think Shawn has that as much, or if not more than everyone else. His matches felt like events, kind of like Floyd Mayweather or something in a way, except Shawn's matches were better than Floyd's boxing fights. A tremendous legacy as well, in fairness. And totally, probably right now, the Rockers are a little bit underrated in how great they were as a tag team in ring. They were actually a fantastic tag team. I'm kind of moving the mic here. A fantastic tag team. Load of great Rockers matches, both in the AWA and WWF. But yeah, 31, Shawn Michaels. At number 30, Akira Hakuto. Dog. Pause. Okay, the dog is fed. Akira Hakuto. Almost countless great matches. But the thing about Hakuto is, more than her matches, she brought an incredible intensity, deep storytelling, a lot of realism to her matches.
Her selling is just out of this world great. The way she sells fatigue as matches go on. She felt violent and visceral, but just a master storyteller, like a master storyteller. The All Japan All Japan women's match with Bull Nakano in '91, her '95 match with Manami Toyota, the '93 Dream Slam match with Shinobu, her former partner Shinobu Kandori, just an out of this world wrestler, smooth but chaotic, great storyteller, great intensity. Number 30, Akira Hakuto. Number 29, we're into the top 30. This video is about 8 hours long. We're into the top 30. 29, Randy Savage, Macho Man, Macho King, one of the great characters in the history of professional wrestling. Who was it he kind of modeled his speech off? Was it Pampiro Firpo? Is that how you said? But like iconic on the mic, iconic promos, great storylines, amazing storyteller, just intensity on another level. Just character-driven storylines, like the Hogan storyline, the Mega Powers, so much character in that. Attention to detail is just off the charts. You've got like a litany of great matches. The three I picked are probably the most obvious one for a lot of people over my side of the world. WrestleMania 3 versus Ricky Steamboat. One of my favorite WrestleMania matches ever is actually WrestleMania 7 versus the Ultimate Warrior in his career ending match. Well, you know, he went on to wrestle in WCW afterwards, but his WWE career ending match versus Warrior at WrestleMania 7, just a tremendous piece of storytelling. The stuff with Elizabeth after the match, real emotional. Randy Savage just tremendous at eliciting emotion from an audience, both as a heel and a babyface. And then his no DQ loser leaves town match in Memphis in 85, 86, 85. And he went to the Fed with Jerry Lawler, no DQ loser leaves town. He is tremendous in a lot of those Memphis matches. There's nearly too many to count. But just an unbelievable wrestler. So many great matches. Great storyteller. Highly intense. Actually, looking at next on my list is someone whose intensity might even match Savage's, if you believe that. But yeah, Savage, 29. Genichiro Tenryu. Tenryu, like, honestly, Tenryu is one of the most enjoyable wrestlers to watch for multiple reasons. He brings realism. He's a great presence. He's a great face. His striking and physicality are amazing. A lot of chaos in his matches. Great seller. Great, like his timing is amazing on comebacks and stuff. But just there's a violence and a physicality and a rawness in a lot of the matches that just feel like pure fights. And you see that, like, and also he has one of the most interesting careers ever across multiple promotions that he started, leaving New Japan at the time he did, or leaving All Japan in the late 80s after the Saruta stuff, because he didn't want to be second fiddle to Saruta, and that leading almost to the panicked emergence of Misawa. Then, you know, just traveling around in the 90s in multiple companies, taking on all different styles, doing shoot style. But like his favorite, my favorite match of his is probably he had the 88 and 89 match with Jumbo Saruta. The 89 match is incredible. The 88 match is brilliant as well. And then the 88 real world tag league match I mentioned already, where he teams with Kawada, who like Kawada is probably his spiritual successor in All Japan. Against Stan Hansen and Terry Gordy is amazing. Kawada's young at the time, very fresh. And seeing Kawada, particularly in hindsight, seeing Kawada teaming with Tenru is amazing. Another match, I think that's just, I don't know if I put it above the Saruta 89 match, but the 96 war match versus the great Muta. And Muta is one of his best opponents. Hashimoto, another one of his great opponents, but Muta is one of maybe my favorite of his opponents. They just absolutely annihilated each other. Muta's attacking him with what I think is a wine bottle. Tenru's just covered in blood. And Tenru makes one of the most incredible babyface comebacks you will ever see in that match. But on another night, he can turn around and be the most effective heel going. Like, you see him wrestling Onita in Onita's promotion. And, he's not like this, what you'd see quite a lot in American wrestling as a heel, but he's clearly the heel going against Onita. And he's having these exploding barbed wire cage of death matches versus Onita, and they're incredible as well. Or he goes and wrestles Takada, he got Takada, and it has an unbelievable shoot style match. His career is bonkers. Just one of the most interesting careers, I think, in pro wrestling history. The wide variety of matches you get from him: classic tags, classic All Japan main events with Saruta, bloodbaths with Muta, striking contests with Hashimoto, shoot style with Takada. Like, literally, this guy has done it all. And then he arrives back to All Japan after the Noah exodus and just has some unbelievable. Like, a lot of people don't look at All Japan after the exodus, but it's such a unique period because, yes, they've lost almost all their top stars aside from Kawada, but even that moment where Tenru was brought back, just an incredible, almost impossible moment in wrestling. An insane career. Gee, I wish I put him higher now. Talking about him, he's amazing. At 27, we got the Hulkster. Seen a lot of Hulkster last weekend over the WrestleMania. Kind of in a lot of ways like Shawn Michaels. Look, Hulk Hogan isn't going to be giving you these super intricate matches, but very few, if anyone, in the history of wrestling had the ability to create excitement like Hogan. The WrestleMania 18 match with The Rock, look at that crowd. The WrestleMania 6 match with Ultimate Warrior, just look at the crowd. WrestleMania 3 versus Andre. Again, look at the crowd going bonkers. Like, on a technical level of a deep breakdown of Hulk Hogan, is he one of the greatest 100 in-ring wrestlers of all time? Move for move, no. But in terms of crowd connection, I'm not sure anyone's better in the history of the business at connecting with a crowd and manipulating a crowd quite like Hulk Hogan. He's had some of the best matches in wrestling history and some of the worst. And again, it's super interesting career. Very important figure in wrestling history. Gigantic piece of shit. But I ruled out one guy from this for being a gigantic piece of shit. I kind of drew the line after that because it's pro wrestling. There's going to be a lot of pieces of shit in it. With Hogan, incredible wrestler. But I'm very happy to announce that Hogan was beaten to the 26th spot by one of my personal favourite wrestlers of all time, Samoa Joe. The best Samoan named Joe. Talk about presence, violence, and coolness. There's very few wrestlers as cool as Samoa Joe. Again, multiple decades now. Everywhere Joe has gone, he's been brought in as almost like a utility player, and he gets elevated to a main event. And I think one of the biggest mistakes Vince McMahon made in the late 2010s was not putting the world title on Samoa Joe. he would have had an incredible run on top. He would have been a draw because he draws everywhere. He's not like a monster draw, but he would have drawn, and he had that chance at WWE's Great Balls of Fire pay-per-view, one of the worst named pay-per-views in history, but an incredible build that he pulled off with Heyman and Lesnar. But 2 decades of excellence. I could have put the Darby Allin match on this list, and I think we're going to see them go at it one more time. I could have put the Darby Allin match on this list. I didn't. But Joe's, I could have put Punk matches on this list, Danielson matches on this list of my 3 favorite Joe matches. None of them made it. Guys had just nearly too many great matches. TNA Unbreakable 05, the iconic triple threat with Christopher Daniels and AJ Styles. IWA Mid-South 2005. I actually, there was a point to why I didn't put any of those other matches on it. I remembered it now. I picked 3 matches from 2005 because he was the best wrestler in the world in 2005. The triple threat with Christopher Daniels versus AJ Styles. Stylistically, incredibly flashy. Joe is the base. High octane. Joe flies in this match. This has everything. Then we go to IWA Mid-South in 05 where he takes on Necro Butcher in one of the most gruesome, hard-hitting, hardcore, violent matches you will ever see versus Necro Butcher. And also in 05, at the event, Joe versus Kobashi. We get some more Joe versus Kent Kobashi in one of the great striking battles / duplex offs, back body drops, main event style matches you will ever see. Joe in 2005. We spoke about JBL 0405 and JBL got on into 96th place or whatever on this list by having a peak year or a kind of peak 18 months from 04 to 05. There's nobody touching Joe in 05. Even Kobashi, who had the second best year of anyone in 05. Well, part of 04, but certainly he was great in 05 as well. So at 26, Samoa Joe. 25, The Rock. The only other guy who I think kind of falls into that Hogan category of maybe, not the most super smooth wrestler in the ring, but someone who brought an unbelievable amount of excitement. One of my favourite title changes I've ever seen was WWF Raw in 99 December when he lost the title to Mankind. Their Royal Rumble follow-up match, the I Quit match, was excellent as well. Obviously, I've mentioned the WWF WrestleMania 18 match versus Hulk Hogan. Iconic. One of the great WrestleMania matches ever, I think. But my favourite match of The Rock's is actually with a guy called Stone Cold Steve Austin in the main event of WrestleMania 17, no DQ. Despite my hindsight feelings of the finish, watching that live at whatever age I was at the time, 12, 13, 14, can't remember. At that point in my life, I was like, that's the greatest match I've ever seen. Again, just pure excitement. And The Rock could, again, elicit responses from a crowd at in and around the Hulk Hogan level. Number 24, Ricky Steamboat. Ricky Steamboat, I don't know what to say. I've just done kind of something weird with this. Ricky Steamboat has so many great matches with Ric Flair. I just said Ric Flair. Steamboat versus Flair. Pick any match. Maybe the Chi-Town Rumble. I don't know. Just pick any Flair Steamboat match. It's going to be incredible. I've mentioned the WrestleMania 3 match versus Randy Savage. I love his match from... What year was that? Backlash? 7, 6, 5, 4? Against Jericho. Super fun match. He's in the 92 War Games, which I've already said I think is my favourite War Games match ever. An incredible babyface. And for a guy who was such a kind of a cookie cutter babyface, he was very cool as well. I think he was just a cool guy. Seems like a gent. But just a deep catalogue of greatness over a long, long period of time. The dog is eating. The dog is trying to tear apart something over here. Uno momento, por favor. 23, we have Jerry Lawler from the Continental Wrestling Association, aka Memphis. Jerry Lawler is maybe the greatest master of psychology in the history of wrestling. Totally limited moveset. kicks, punches, but his timing is utterly impeccable. His ability to control crowds is up there with Hogan, particularly in Memphis. He could work perfectly as a babyface, and on the next night in another territory, he could be the best heel in the business. He's just simplicity, character driven, emotion, adept at introducing drama. Go to SummerSlam 93 versus Bret. He's a great heel. The 85 match with Randy Savage, no DQ, loser leaves town. He's amazing in that. The Andy Kaufman stuff is so entertaining. So entertaining. I think my favourite match is from Memphis 87, the Austin Idol hair versus hair steel cage match with all sorts of shenanigans. I think it's him in that ringside, if I remember correctly. Yeah, just really when it comes to crowd control, psychology, Lawler is the definition of perfection in those areas. Not the flashiest moveset, as I've said, but his timing, his comebacks, when he's a heel, his cut-offs, everything. This guy is a master of in-ring psychology. Number 22, Toshiaki Kawada, the second of the four pillars of heaven from All Japan 90s to feature on this list. Again, I included one match on my kind of recommendations for him that's post All Japan peak after the Noah Exodus. And he has so many great matches, in fairness to him, after the Exodus. But his 05 match with Kojima, Satoshi Kojima, the bread man. Some of you might remember him from wrestling CM Punk at a Forbidden Door, I think. But obviously much younger then was Kojima, taking on Kawada in, I think Kojima might have been the champ going into that match for its Triple Crown. The June 95 match, I've mentioned it already, with Taue, where Kawada teams with Taue, Holy Demon Army, certainly the greatest heel tag team of the 90s, in my opinion. I want to take on Misawa and Kobashi. It's all four pillars in the ring at the same time. One of the great tag matches of all time. I've mentioned the 6-man, where he teams with Misawa and Kobashi against Saruta, Fuji, and Taue. He was incredible in that match. The 88 match where he teams with Tenryu versus Stan Hansen and Terry Gordy. Again, he's young, but he's excellent in that match. But really, you just have to pick a match that's known in a lot of wrestling circles by the date of 6/3/94 or 3/6/94, whichever part of the world you're in. Versus Misawa for the Triple Crown, one of the great wrestling matches of all time. I think, does Meltzer say it's the first match to break the 5-star scale? It was given 6 stars back in 94. A match just brutally devastating. Kawada's, like, you watch Kawada kick people, and he's small in stature. He's bulky old chest and neck and all, but he's a small dude. And I watched a match with him and Stan Hansen last week on a watch along with AJPW Nerd. A hell of a match. It feels like he's half Stan Hansen's size, but it doesn't matter because he's just laying kicks in so brutally that you totally buy every single thing he's doing. One of the great wrestlers of the 90s, and even great into 2000s, and showed flashes of early greatness in the late 80s as well. Number 21. This one's going to be... this one will cause some debate, I think. This person over Lawler, Steamboat, Rock, Joe, Hogan, Tenryu, Savage. John Moxley. On earlier drafts, I had Moxley much lower. And I started doing some preference revealers where you get 1v1s of which wrestler you prefer. And I realized I was constantly picking Moxley. Moxley is one of the best week-to-week wrestlers in the history of professional wrestling. One of the best TV wrestlers, certainly. When I say week-to-week, that's kind of what I mean. He had some great stuff with the Shield. Was it against Ryback, Kane, and Danielson? That 6-man tag. The Wyatt 6-man tag was great too. A lot of stuff fell flat after that, I think, in WWE for him.
but he was reinvigorated in 2019 when he left the company. Firstly, with his Tomohiro Ishii match in the 2019 G1 Climax. That match is off the charts great. He had, I think, personally the most underrated main event in AEW pay-per-view history at All Out 2023 versus Orange Cassidy was the international title Orange Cassidy was rocking at that stage? I think it was the international title. That match, I think, is the most underrated pay-per-view main event in AEW history, which, we're going on 7 years now. I think he put in truly one of the great heel performances of this century against Adam Page at All in Texas. I thought Adam Page was good in that match. I thought Jon Moxley was phenomenal as the heel in that match. He put on, and then only just a few months later, he put in one of the great babyface performances of I genuinely think it was the second or third best babyface performance of 2025 against Kyle Fletcher in the semi-final of the, what do they call it, the Continental Classic, the C squared, in the semi-final versus Kyle Fletcher. Again, presence, violence, can do all different sorts of wrestling. He can grapple. He's not the smoothest grappler, but he's a realistic grappler. He looks like he's fighting. He can do the blood stuff. He can do the deathmatch stuff. Fantastic on the mic. Brings an incredible excitement. I'm super high on Jon Moxley at the moment. I think he's doing great work still on TV. A guy who constantly shows up and constantly gives it his best. Sometimes shit falls flat for him, but he's a risk taker. He's a tremendous risk taker. I don't just mean that physically, I mean that with ideas as well. And he has a very clear philosophy of what he believes pro wrestling should be. I think his philosophy in many ways kind of aligns with what I love about pro wrestling. Yeah, I don't know if there's much more to say about Moxley. I think this one might cause some controversy, particularly in the wrestling show universe. But there's something special about Mox, I think. And, maybe this is a pick in 10 years' time where I look back on this and I'm doing my 2036 GWE and I'm like, Jesus, I had Moxley at 21, but it feels right for me at the moment with the few years he's had. I think one of the most consequential wrestlers of the last decade, to be perfectly honest. I don't think AEW is anywhere near what it is without him. The eye stuff with Jericho was even great in the early days. The Kenny Omega series of various bonkers matches. He had a random cage match with Kenny on Dynamite years after the peak of their feud, which was out of this world great. The exploding barbed wire death match with Kenny, again, this kind of falls into the Montreal Screwjob territory of matches that were trending to be just all-time great, I think, until the finish. If that finish had pulled off, we'd be talking about that match regularly today, I think. I'm just extremely high on Moxley at the moment. I love what he's doing. So Moxley's in at 21, greatest wrestler ever, Jon Moxley. Number 20, El Hijo del Santo. Not the highest luchador on my list. El Hijo del Santo has a tremendous amount of great matches. He's so technically clean. He mastered the structure of lucha libre style wrestling. Like, he can go from high flying to super clean grappling in an instant. His babyface comebacks are phenomenal. The fact he's carrying El Santo's legacy is incredible. The most famous luchador ever, or certainly the most culturally significant luchador ever, and he carries that legacy. And he carries himself as such a symbolic hero as well. And you see how that really lends into the crowd connection he has. And it's crazy that he had a pretty quiet retirement. His retirement match didn't feel like a big deal, but I suppose a lot of, like El Satanico, I suppose a lot of these luchadors retire so old that by the time they're doing their big retirement matches, maybe they're so far past their best that
it doesn't kind of feel relevant. His Negro Casas match, Hair versus Mask at the 64th CMLL anniversary show is fantastic. Negro Casas, I think, is probably his best opponent across the ring, or certainly one of. The Negro Casas versus El Dandy versus El Hijo del Santo Hair versus Mask match from 1996 is out of this world great, particularly the stretch with El Dandy and El Hijo del Santo. Where El Dandy leans heel and El Hijo del Santo plays the greatest babyface you could ever see. Amazing. And then he's also involved in, I think, what a lot of people might think is the greatest tag match ever, where he teams with Octagon versus a fairly young Eddie Guerrero and Love Machine Art Barr at the AAA When Worlds Collide 1994 pay-per-view. That's such a great pay-per-view, by the way. But that match is the highlight of it, steals the show. The guy's amazing. Watch loads of El Hijo del Santo. That's all I got to say about that. At number 19, we're into the top 20. At number 19, we have Chigusa Nagayo, All Japan women's icon from the 80s. Thrives on emotional connection. She drained every bit of emotion, strained every bit of emotion she possibly could from a match. Even for her size, her striking and physicality were amazing, added so much credibility when she's up against monsters like Dump Matsumoto. Her crowd psychology, her controlling of the crowd, and her ability to get the crowd to buy into her as a babyface, and the emotional storytelling, particularly across the two hair versus hair matches with Dump Matsumoto in 85 and 86. The arc she brings you on there is just incredible. She obviously has that the Crush Gals amazing tag team with Linus Asuka against Dump and Crane U and against Dump and Bull Nakano as well. There's an 85. She had two matches in August 85 that are legit all-time great matches. One versus Dump Matsumoto and one versus Devil Masami. And then when she wrestled her own partner from the Crush Gals, Linus Asuka, in 87, the emotion was just incredible. Really, just her crowd connection and her ability to translate that into pure emotion. When you hear those screams at ringside, it's just, you just don't get that anymore. That level of pure buy-in from an audience, it's something that I feel like it's lost forever, because we have so much like wink wink nudge nudge irony wrestling over the last 25 years, really probably since somewhere during the Attitude Era. Maybe Vinny Rue has a lot to answer for there. Wrestling has become a kind of an ironic thing, whereas Chigusa Nagayo is pure authenticity, and that's something, that connection then that leads from that is lost. At number 18, we have Negro Casas. Endlessly creative. This isn't true, but it feels like it is. It feels like you never see him do the same thing twice. He is unbelievable. Maybe the greatest mind for wrestling ever. There's someone else that on this list that I might have higher in that sense, but truly one of the greatest minds ever. Like, just endlessly creative. Just an insane amount of great matches over a very long period of time as well. I mentioned the El Hijo del Santo hair versus mask match. He was El Hijo del Santo's best opponent. They might have been each other's best opponents. It's such fantastic heel work. There's another person on this list that they don't wrestle that similar, but they remind me of each other. In terms of maybe there's more similarities to be thought about, I suppose. His team, when he teamed with El Dandy versus Ultimo Dragon and Corazon de Leon, aka a young Chris Jericho, in CMLL in July '93, that's the best match in Ultimo Dragon's career. And Ultimo Dragon, an iconic name, not on the list.
But I think, yeah, that match is exceptional. And when he's teaming with Mystico versus Averno and Mephisto in CMLL in '06, like he's probably at that stage 10, 12 years past his peak. He's still incredible in that match. But yeah, just endlessly creative. Truly one of the great minds and most creative minds in wrestling history. At number 17, we've got Manami Toyota. I think there could be an argument made that she is in terms of stylistically, the most influential wrestler of the last 3 decades. Her high pace, high innovation, high octane offensive style, high flying, everything, but the ferocity with which she throws herself into everything. Her level of cardio must have been absolutely insane. But we see like the logical endpoint of her style in people today, like Will Ospreay. He kind of very much reminds me of her in certain ways in terms of he brings a ferociousness and a consistent high pace throughout matches that I think Manami Toyota was a real innovator of. Unbelievable on near falls, escalation throughout matches, and sometimes you're like 20 minutes into like a 40-minute match, and you're like, how can this escalate any further? And it constantly does. Her speed is frightening. And then there's a great emotional storytelling that comes from that too, because she really was a beloved babyface as well, who similarly to Chigusa Nagayo really got hordes of fans screaming for her. But really the high intensity of what she brought, and it always felt smooth, even though it didn't always look smooth. Some things look like car crashes with her, but just an absolute incredible wrestler. Loads of matches on YouTube. Did I name matches there? Actually, I don't know if I did. The Aja Kong match from the Big Egg Universe show in '94. I mentioned this one already. Her match with Akira Kuto at AJW's Destiny in '95, and then when she teamed with Akira Kuto in '93 in the Tag League, again they wrestled 2 matches in the same night in the semi-main and the main event versus Kyoka Inoue and Toshiya Yamada. And basically, the first match was the final of the league section, and Yamada and Kyoka win to qualify for the final versus Bakuto and Toyota straight away afterwards. And as a singular viewing, both matches together is insane. You could watch either one of those matches on their own and think that's just an unbelievable tag match. And then, but when you take the two of them together on the same night, moments apart, you look at really a masterpiece of storytelling over the course of 2 matches in one evening. And the fact it's for the tag league title or the tag league crown trophy, whatever you want to call it. And the league stage and all the setup involved in that, just unbelievable stuff. At number 16, Bret the Hitman Hart, my favorite wrestler for many, many years of my life. I met Bret. I met him. That was nice. It was nice meeting Bret with my friends all those years ago. Was it 2010 or something? Whenever, around the time he was releasing the book. Like I said, I loved the Survivor Series '97 match with Shawn Michaels. His 1-2-3 kid match on TV. He had a great match at a Royal Rumble, I think it was, with Razor Ramon, Scott Hall. You've got everything he did at WrestleMania 10, like I said, is one of my favorite WrestleManias. And then the follow up, the SummerSlam '94 steel cage match with his brother Owen. You could go with the Owen Hart tribute match versus Redacted, that scumbag Benoit. Just the Mr. Perfect match, the Roddy Piper match, the British Bulldog match, all fantastic matches. I don't even need to talk about Bret for a long time because, if you're in Ireland watching this, you probably the same as me, grew up on Bret Hart, and probably like me for a lot of you, Bret Hart was your favorite wrestler for many, many years. But his crowning achievement, the Survivor Series 96, Yeah, and WrestleMania 13, a duo of matches with Stone Cold Steve Austin, particularly the No Holds Barred submission match refereed by Ken Shamrock at WrestleMania 13, and the infamous double turn. It, we've seen other companies in subsequent years and probably previous to that try and do these types of double turns. Never was it executed to that level. The excellence of execution, pun not intended. But he was in the ring with another all-time great, Steve Austin. And really the best match in WrestleMania history, the best match in WWE, WWF history, one of the best matches, if not the best match in wrestling history. It's just an absolute perfect encapsulation of the skills that Bret Hart had. His whole of 1987 is one of the best years a wrestler has ever had. It's kind of like Samoa Joe in '05, Danielson in 2023, whatever his retirement year was. There's a few times where a wrestler just takes over a year and is, in my opinion, like almost too good in a year that it starts to blend all together. But 1997 Bret Hart is just out of this world great. Number 15, Vader, the best pure big man in wrestling history. Again, it's a series of great matches. When he caused that riot after beating Inoki for the first time, or when he wrestled Inoki again like 6, 7 years later, incredible. But again, this guy for a big man was a master of many styles. He was in the UWFI in '94 taking on Nobuhiko Takada in shoot style matches. Him and Stan Hansen bet each other so bad that his eye popped out of his head and he put it back in and kept wrestling. And he teams with Stan Hansen in the Real World Tag League in '98 versus Kobashi and Akiyama in an all-time great tag match. And then his singles match. And at this stage, he did look a little bit past his best. But his '99 singles match versus Kenta Kobashi is out of this world great. You go back to what he was doing in '92 to up to around '94 WCW matches with Sting, matches with Cactus Jack. I think there's is there a Steamboat match in there, or am I misremembering? I think there's a great Steamboat match in there as well in that period of WCW. Just really like the best pure big man in wrestling history. I know there's names on this list coming up soon that sound like big men, but I think as like what we think of as a big man in that sense, he's just better at it than everybody else. At 14, we've got the ace Jumbo Saruta. Jumbo Saruta is like so adaptable. Like he wrestles American style matches, Japanese style matches, kind of similar, against a variety of opponents across eras. You can see him wrestle Bruiser Brody in like wild matches. You can see him wrestle classic 2 out of 3 fall matches with his 2 out of 3 falls match with Ric Flair, which ends in an hour, still an hour time limit, where he's leading 1-0. It's for the NWA World Heavyweight title in June '83. He wrestles Flair in a 2 out of 3 falls match in All Japan. Flair's on tour with the title. He beats Flair 1-0, but doesn't win the title because it's 2 out of 3 falls match. It's considered a draw because the hour time limit was reached. Unbelievable match. They probably should have had it 1-1, but anyway, for a bit of drama towards the end. I mentioned this, the great 6-man in wrestling history, where he teams with Toei and Fuji against Misawa, Kobashi, and Kawada. He is outrageously good in that match. He's got Terry Funk matches through the 70s and 80s, Dory Funk matches that are great. He's got tag matches with Baba against the Funks that are great in the 70s and into the 80s. Like he's legit great from about, I don't know, maybe about 76 until 91, maybe even 92. Like 16 years have been absolute legit great that whole time, in my opinion. I mentioned this match already, his '89 match and the '88 match, particularly the '89 match with Tenryu. The match where he puts over Misawa is a great match. Grumpy old man Jumbo, when the 4 pillars start breaking through in the late '80s, early '90s, particularly the early '90s section, when Jumbo's like, kind of coming. He knows it's time for the next generation, and he just goes, the grumpiest old bastard of all time is truly one of the great runs of anyone ever in wrestling.
At 13, we got Stan Hansen, just blind as a bat, taking people's heads off. Underrated, great storyteller with callbacks and all that kind of stuff. Underrated. Just a total force of nature. Believability off the Richter scale. Multiple great matches. Terry Funk in All Japan in '83. That just descends into utter madness. I think he gets disqualified. Funk is left lying in blood. Dory has to come out and help Funk because Stan won't stop beating him after the bell. I mentioned the Real World Tag League match in '88 where he teams with Terry Gordy versus Tenryu and Kawada. He later teams with Vader. He's old as shit when he's teaming with Vader, and they're still great. But his series of single matches with Kobashi throughout the '90s, particularly the '93 match available on YouTube, is utterly, utterly captivating. The guy, like he wrestled multiple decades at the top of the card wherever he went, including he wrestled. Did he break Bruno's neck? I think he might have broke Bruno Sammartino's neck. At number 12, we have Mitsuharu Misawa, the third of the four pillars of heaven to feature. I've mentioned all these matches already. You've got the 3-6-94 match versus Kawada. Actually, I haven't mentioned this one. His 97 match, January 97 versus Kenta Kobashi. In my opinion, it's better than the Kawada match from '94. I don't know if people will agree with that or not. I prefer it. Again, it's just one of the all-time great singles matches. And in any number of tag matches where he's teaming with, whether it's Kawada, whether it's Kobashi, mainly Kobashi, I think that was his best partner, particularly younger Kobashi, who Kobashi's doing a lot of the heavy lifting and the selling, and Misawa gets to just come in and murder someone with an elbow. His elbow is everything. He had a nice little team with John Akiyama for a while. He even did even his Kobashi match in '04 or '03, '04 in Noah was utterly sensational. I don't think he has too many great matches after about '04. Even his Tiger Mask stuff was really great. But yeah, number 12, Mitsuharu Misawa, just truly one of the great storytellers ever, long term storytellers. Great, the perfect figurehead for a wrestling company. Looks great in the emerald green, in fairness. Number 11, the ace, Hiroshi Tanahashi. The man had certainly the greatest singles retirement match I've ever seen. It's probably better than the Sting and Darby match versus the Young Bucks. But the crazy thing about this match is we'd been looking at him steadily degrading year on year since about 2018, but he was able to manage it and still be great until about 2021. And since the end of 21, start of 2022, he's just got progressively more crocked. Just couldn't do anything, and it was getting painful to watch someone who was once so great just be barely able to move and be like this total reduced version of himself. And then in January 4th, 2026, in his retirement match, he pulls out really one of the great matches of his career. And you can pick the Invasion Attack match versus Okada from 2014 or 15. You can go back to Wrestle Kingdom 9 or Wrestle Kingdom 10 main events with Okada as just perfect professional wrestling, one of the great rivalries of that decade. Truly one of the great passing of the torch rivalries ever. But then the retirement match with Okada, January 4th, 2026, Wrestle Kingdom 20, and just seeing him reel back the years and while still totally crocked, and after wrestling more matches in the previous year than he had in years and years and years. And just to be able to pull that out one more time was it's a work of art. That retirement match is a work of art, and it wasn't just him; it was Okada as well. They were both utterly perfect in that match. The G1 final in 2018 versus Kota Ibushi. Him and Kota Ibushi are kind of low key great adversaries. And another low key great adversary of his is Zack Sabre Jr. I think their styles meshed
beautifully. And then, his old guy he came through with, Shinsuke Nakamura. They had the G1 final in 2015, which is incredible. They've got some earlier matches that are good and worth watching as well, but I think the G1 is 2015 or 2014. Shit, I can't remember. Whatever it was, I think it was Nakamura's last match. Not last match, last G1, before he went to the Federales. But yeah, next up, where's my notes? Again, this next one is going to be quite a surprise, I think. Although if you've listened to me long enough on the podcast, it might come as that much of a surprise. But number 10, I've got Asuka, aka or FKA Kana. I think the highest rated female on my list, and highest rated female on my list, I'm pretty sure. Let me pull it up there. There's a lot of this I don't know what's coming next, and my notes are a mess because I'm a messy thinker. Yes, the highest rated female on my list is Asuka, FKA Kana. Her NXT, the undefeated streak in NXT was amazing. Even the match where she lost her pay-per-view undefeated streak, or her undefeated streak against Charlotte at whatever WrestleMania that was. That was a great match too. Really good match. Asuka should have won. I will die on that hill. She was hot. She just won the Royal Rumble. The timing was right. I think they got that wrong. No, I know they got that wrong. There was so much more to get out of Asuka and that kind of undefeated streak. The Ember Moon stuff, the Ember Moon at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 3, maybe not as good as Sasha and Bailey, certainly not as historically significant as Sasha Banks versus Bailey, but I think right up there on par in terms, close to par in terms of pure quality. The JWP Climax 2013 match versus Arisa Nakajima is insanely good. But really, I think her peak, and there's a series of matches, particularly through 2010-11 versus Miko Satomura. But she has the music match versus Miko Satomura in a show that she ran herself, Kana Pro, in 2014 versus Miko Satomura. It's available on YouTube. It's absolutely one of the best matches I have ever seen. And, excuse me, what makes Anna Asuka so great is her ability to feel dangerous, both in the striking department and in the grappling submission department. The ferocity and intention with which she grapples is just perfect. It feels like buzzsaw constantly attacking, and it's so smooth and so tight, and every hold feels like it's there with intention to hurt. And same with her kicking and her back fists. Her striking is, again, it feels like it's there to do maximum damage at all times. One of my favorite wrestlers to watch, and I think one of the best wrestlers I've ever seen. In fact, I think she's the 10th best wrestler I've ever seen. But yeah, at number 10, Asuka Kana. If she had been booked right at that period, when she lost to Charlotte, I think, a lot of people wouldn't see this as a crazy pick. I don't think it's a crazy pick anyway, because I think we have to look past the booking in a lot of instances. And she showed that she could be endlessly adaptable. She adapted through multiple styles, through multiple generations. So there's an adaptability there as well. And always compelling. And the way she can move from kind of almost comedy taunting straight into this brutal series of strikes into this snug section of grappling is it's awesome. She's awesome. That's what I'm saying. Asuka's top 10. We're in the top 10. Number 9, Kazuchika Okada, a man partially responsible for restoring my love of wrestling in the mid-teens. I've already mentioned the Tanahashi retirement match. I think that was an absolute work of art. Okada played a huge part in that. You've got the Kenny Omega series, which, it's my favorite series in wrestling history. I think it features the best match in wrestling history, which is actually the second one, the time limit draw at Dominion 2017. But all of those matches are incredible. Particularly the 3 title matches. Yeah, I didn't love their All In Texas match. I thought it was really well wrestled. It just didn't feel like it should have. I thought it was kind of overburdened by too much American style storytelling. I.e., forcing too much story rather than letting the story be what it is throughout the match. But then, an utter masterpiece with Katsuyori Shibata at Sakura Genesis 2017 in terms of brutality. That match, it's like a great film that you're afraid to rewatch, Requiem for a Dream or something. Now, I have rewatched it a few times since, but I do this thing to myself where I watch the Paul Thomas Anderson film Magnolia once a year every August. I don't know why. It's miserable, but it's perfect filmmaking in my opinion. And I think the Okada Shibata match is the Magnolia of professional wrestling. An absolutely picture perfect professional wrestling match that is not enjoyable, but you can't take your eyes off it. His title run over those 2 years, even though he had a defense in there against Bad Luck Fale, that title run where he eventually put Kenny over at Dominion 2018 is incredible. It's record breaking, yes. It's 2 years long. He breaks Tanahashi's record for most title defenses in a reign with the IWGP title. And the match in which he breaks that is against Tanahashi. And that was the storyline, is that nobody had really emerged as a serious title contender because he was kind of beating everybody and drawing with, he had beaten and drawn with Omega. I was like, who's going to be the one to break the record breaker one? And it turns out to be Tanahashi. And they legit got me several times in that match that Tanahashi was going to beat him. Even though, I knew that it wasn't going to be he was going to break the thing, but they still got me. He's still great today, even in AEW, even in a style of presentation that isn't ideal for who and what he is. He's still great. Matches with Kevin Knight, Mike Bailey, Moxley, Ospreay. He still has great matches there. But I just don't think the presentation of the company is perfect for what his true strengths are. And seeing him go back to the Tokyo Dome for Tanahashi's retirement match in January of this year only hammered that home to me. Seeing him in the Tokyo Dome, being Kazuchika Okada in Japan, is there was a time a few years ago I might have put him at number 1 on this list. Not that I have him number 9 all time. But yeah, maybe if he had stayed in Japan, I might think that. But then Japan became such a basket case for a few years. I don't think even he could have saved it. But anyway, that's Kazuchika Okada, number 9. Number 8, the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. Again, if you're like me, grew up in Ireland, you know everything there is to know about Ric Flair. Ric Flair doesn't hide anything from anyone, including, Ric Flair shits himself in public bars in Miami now. That's just what life has become. But sometimes we might forget the true greatness of Ric Flair. Ric Flair's 1989. I spoke about it with Samoa Joe 05, with Okada 2017, with Bret Hart 97. Sometimes a wrestler has a year that feels like it can never be matched, and that was Ric Flair in 1989. You got the series of Ricky Steamboat matches. Like I said, my favourite being the Chi-Town Rumble match. You've got the series of Funk matches, that angle with Funk coming out of retirement and pile driving him through the table, leading to the iconic I Quit match at Clash of the Champions 89. Is January 87 defense versus Barry Windham.
amazing. The Von Erich stuff is amazing. There's just so much. Like, there's so much throughout the 80s. When he goes to Japan, he's unbelievable. He did the Royal Rumble 92 performance. Like, I don't know, like, what do you say? Like, it's Ric Flair. What do you say? Well, like, what analysis am I going to give? It's Ric Flair. Why is he in your top 10? Because he's Ric Flair. That's why. Number 7 is Steve Austin. Stone Cold or Stunning. Whichever one you want to put. Stone Cold Steve Austin. Steve Austin was fucking great in WCW. But as a singles guy, in the TV title division, as a tag team with Brian Pillman, the Hollywood Blondes, the promos he cut on ECW when he's finding his voice, unbelievable. But obviously, Stone Cold Steve Austin, the coolest wrestler who's ever lived. Survivor Series 96 versus Brett. Underrated classic. Over the Edge 98 versus Dude Love. Underrated classic. WrestleMania 13 versus Bret Hart. Like, I've already glazed that match as much as I possibly can. WrestleMania 14 versus Michaels, not great, but he still had that Stone Cold energy. 15 versus The Rock, I think, was real good. 16 injured. 17 versus The Rock was amazing. And, kind of at that stage then, after that, he kind of is past his bets. We have the 3 stages of hell match with Triple H, which is actually pretty good considering it's a Triple H match. Stone Cold was great in that match. And you have the one, again, another Triple H match. Don't worry, Triple H isn't showing up on this list. Where is he? Triple H and Stone Cold versus Jericho and Benoit. That tag match from Raw 01, 2-man power trip. I mentioned it earlier, now I can't remember who's in it. But yeah, number 7 is Steve Austin, and personally one of my favourite wrestlers ever either, peak attitude era when I was 12, 13, 14 years of age. Steve Austin was like everyone's favourite wrestler and the guy you thought was the coolest person on the planet. And the guy you wanted to grow up to be like, and thank God I didn't. Number 6, Kenneth Omega. I've already said part of the greatest series of matches in wrestling history, in my opinion, in his program with Kazuchika Okada. Has that AEW Revolution 2020 tag match with Adam Page versus the Young Bucks. A unique form of storytelling, a master storyteller, don't care what anyone says. Explosivity, great moveset, great psychology in terms of escalation and matches. But more than anything, Kenny Omega's match structure is unbelievable. He made Tanahashi cry when he wrestled Gabe Kidd at that, whatever that pay-per-view was called last year. He made Tanahashi cry. That match was so perfect. The Wrestle Kingdom 17 match with Will Ospreay when he went back to Japan, and the Forbidden Door follow-up with Will Ospreay in Canada. You could just list Kenny Omega, the Tomohiro Ishii stuff, whatever. Like, he has a great match with Hiroki Goto. He has a really good match with Michael fucking Elgin. Just an absolute genius of a professional wrestler. And I mentioned it when I spoke about Shawn Michaels. When there's a big Kenny Omega match coming up, the last time I felt like that kind of sense of anticipation and the necessity to watch it live, and the feeling that you're almost part of something bigger. Kenny Omega, I think, is the first guy who's had that, really. Maybe Punk to an extent, but I don't really think on this level since Shawn Michaels. I don't think anyone has captured that feeling of, oh, this guy's got a big match coming up. I have to watch that, quite like Kenny since Shawn Michaels did. So yeah, Kenny Omega, 6th greatest professional wrestler of all time. At number 5, we've got the man, Mick Foley. Mick Foley doesn't just have a great list of matches. What Mick Foley has more than anyone else is the ability to make the guy standing across from him look like the best wrestler in the world. I think that is so underrated. He did it for Sting at Beach Blast in 92. He made Triple H at the 2000 Royal Rumble in that street fight.
He was incredible against Austin at Over the Edge 98 as Dude Love. He was incredible against. He made Shawn Michaels look better than maybe anyone else has at Mind Games 96. He did it for Edge. He did it for Randy Orton. Bloody hell, he even did it for the New Age Outlaws. History might be so different if Mick Foley and Terry Funk didn't make the New Age Outlaws look like great wrestlers. We mightn't have to listen to either Raw Dog or Billy Gunn today. But we do, and we mightn't have to listen to Triple H today. We mightn't have Randy Orton main event night 1 of WrestleMania 42 had it not been for Mick Foley making all those people look like they were a million times better than they were. He made The Undertaker even look better than he was. Whenever a wrestler needed to be put over and put over looking great, who do you call? Mick Foley. Truly, there's nobody in wrestling history better at making their opponents look, well, there might be one person better. And, we'll get to him. But even the other person I don't think is better than Foley at making their opponent look infinitely better than they are. Kind of alluded to this guy when I mentioned Negro Casas at number 4. We've got Eddie Guerrero. Eddie doesn't have the deep match catalogue of a Kenny Omega or a Kazuchika Okada or Mitsuharu Misawa, of a lot of those people. But what Eddie Guerrero does have, again, is just endless creativity. Every single Eddie Guerrero match you will watch, whether that be when he's a young guy in 94 with Art Bar, the Love Machine versus El Hijo del Santo and Octagon, whether it's in 94, the young guy, whether it's 11 years later, 12 years later, every single Eddie Guerrero match you watch, you will see something creative. You will see something unique. You will see something innovative. Eddie Guerrero, in my opinion, shouldn't be defined by how great his matches were so much as how great the moments within his matches were. I don't mean moments TM like a WrestleMania moment and these moments that WWE give us now. I'm talking about genuine moments of connection with the crowd and fun and joy of professional wrestling and all of those things. His title-winning match against Brock at No Way Out 2004, Brock didn't give a shit. He was out the door, and Eddie Guerrero made that match incredible. The stuff with the boot against Kurt Angle, is there any? There's just nothing better than that. And the Kurt Angle matches were really, all these matches are really good. But they're really good because Eddie Guerrero just had this endless bank of creative ideas that made these super special moments. The light sheet steel, the Latino heat, the stuff with China was great. You have his Rey Mysterio stuff in both WWE. WWE stuff was fine, but he certainly has one great match with Rey in WWE. But in WCW, Eddie Guerrero, his stuff when he went to ECW, seeing him wrestling in Ring of Honor was wild. He was getting in shape and he looked real good. The WrestleMania 20 match with Angle again is just so much fun. Yeah, I did JBL stuff. I mentioned that earlier. Eddie's just this perfectly creative wrestler who maybe all his matches aren't the best match you'll ever see, but there'll be something in every match that you just say, holy shit, Eddie Guerrero was great. And he made other guys look great as well. He made JBL for that JBL title reign. He made JBL to be the biggest asshole. And JBL was great, don't get me wrong. I put him 96 all time just because of that 1 year. But Eddie Guerrero did everything he possibly could to make it JBL look great as well. And JBL came along with him and went for it. All right, Doggy, I'll bring you out now and then I'll come back to record. Dog. Sorry. Hey, the doggy got some fresh air. We're into it. We're hitting the top 3. We're down to the 3 greatest professional wrestlers in history, unequivocally. There can be no argument. This is the definitive
top 3 greatest wrestlers of all time. I'm doing the irony thing now, and I'm giving out about wrestlers being ironic. This is my top 3 ever. Number 3, Terry Funk. I know a lot of people might have Terry Funk number 1 on their list. There's nobody in wrestling history who was as great as Terry for so long. And why was he great for so long? Because Terry Funk got wrestling more than anyone. His ability to adapt to eras, to changing styles, to changing audiences. He could just do everything. You look at Terry Funk in the 70s or 80s. You look up on the territories versus Japan, different wrestler. He was able to tailor performances for the crowd in front of him that night. He goes to ECW, he's great. He goes to FMW and has the most insane matches in wrestling history with Onita and the cast of ridiculous characters over there. But Terry Funk treated everything with respect. And therefore, it felt like it mattered. He didn't look at even as a legend in the 90s. He was going to the Outlaw show on ECW and giving it, he was working at indies all over the place and giving it everything. Whether it was deathmatch style, like when he was doing death matches, he was 10 years removed from being the biggest prestige foreign wrestler, the biggest, and maybe the first. I don't know, maybe Destroyer did it, but yeah, I think maybe Destroyer did it before him. But he was so beloved in Japan that they dispensed with the gimmick of the Gaijin, the foreign heel, the menace from America, because he was so beloved. He became a beloved babyface over there. And he was legitimately great. Flair in '89, he was great. And he was retired 3 times or something at that stage. Maybe more. Just pure adaptability over multiple eras. Took everything seriously. Never looked down his nose at any form, any style of wrestling. Constantly looked at what the next generation were doing and never shat on the next generation. He bought into it. And like you have wrestlers out there that aren't fucking Terry Funk and they're giving out about, oh, guys of these days are working too fast. They're doing this, they're doing that. Shut the fuck up. Terry Funk adapted. Terry Funk constantly adapted. He was on the cutting edge of wrestling for 40 years, 50 years maybe. He always saw the future. It was Terry Funk. I don't even know if I need to list matches, but if you want Terry Funk matches to know why Terry Funk is so great, okay. With Lawler in 81 in Memphis, the no DQ match, or the empty arena match. Pick one. Teaming with Dory versus Stan Hansen and Bruiser Brody in All Japan Real World Tag League 82. A classic. And then the I Quit match with Flair at Clash 89. And he had an unbelievable match with Mankind on Raw to be the number 1 contender for Stone Cold's title in 98. 98. Terry Funk was at his peak 20 years before 98. He's countless great matches in the 70s, countless great matches in the 80s. It's ECW triple threat match. Like Terry Funk is the most special wrestler ever because he never looked down his nose at anything, and everything he did with pure authenticity and made it all believable. I don't think anyone could make wrestling as believable as Terry Funk. He was such a great seller. He had this vulnerability to him. That Stan Hansen match in '83 where Hansen gets disqualified for beating the living shit out of Funk, and Funk is there selling in his blood, but there's a fight still in him because you always believed in him. The chaos Terry Funk could bring, unmatched. He just made wrestling feel real. Wrestling was still real to Funk, god damn it, and unpredictable. He made it feel like messy and emotional, pure authentic. Why isn't Terry Funk my number 1? When I talk about Terry Funk, you know, there's that line from Moneyball. That's why the game makes you emotional. Sometimes you still get emotional about baseball or whatever it is Brad Pitt says as that Moneyball character. That's kind of how you feel about Terry Funk. He made it real and honest and messy and brutal and beautiful over decades. If that doesn't get you emotional, I don't know what will. I'm choking up here. Number 2, I had to pause there to have a little cry. Number 2, Kenta Kobashi. Again, another look. Authenticity is something that's come up a lot in the top 10. Kenta Kobashi is unbelievably authentic, but I don't think Kenta Kobashi had a thing that I don't really know that anyone was ever able to do on his level. Nothing ever felt like a spot. Everything he did felt like it carried consequence within the match. If there's a series of chops, it has consequence. If he's going up to hit the moonsault, it has consequence. His overly enthusiastic energy when it's young has consequence because it leads to mistakes. Um, and how he developed from this, like that overly enthusiastic version of himself in the early 90s to finding his feet by the late 90s to being the unstoppable force by the mid 2000s. His whole career was like this perfectly charted journey, and we saw the story of his career play out over years. There's a catharsis in his matches, and not just his matches. His like it's so hard to analyze Kenta Kobashi to a single match because I feel like he thought about wrestling on a much grander scale than that. You're getting payoffs years later. You're getting catharsis years later. Just consistently the best big match wrestler ever in wrestling. His offense carried this like emotional resonance and meaning. Um, his moves were just so impactful. When he pulled out the idea of the burning hammer, just even the idea of it, a move that you use 7 times in your career and it nearly kills everyone you use, not kills, but like it's actually maybe nearly kills people. There's structural escalation in his matches that's unbelievable. His selling and the way suffering became part of his character, but within match and throughout his career, is incredible. Pacing, ability to deliver drama, like I said, payoff, sympathy. Just I was writing down random words I thought of, and his finishing stretches. There's an argument that Okada might be the best in wrestling history at finishing stretches. Personally, I think that's Kenta Kobashi, the best in wrestling history at crafting the finishing stretch of a match. Because, like I said, everything he does throughout the match has consequence. If you want to talk about like you can't even pick. I can't. I just pick 3 from different sections of his career. Like you could pick the '05 Samoa Joe match as a encapsulation of a perfect professional wrestling match. But I just to show this kind of how great he was over time. His performance in that 6-man tag that I've now mentioned multiple times, the one where he's teaming with Kawada Misawa versus Suruta, Taue, and Fuji. His performance in particular in that match as he's the youngest of his team. He is the least experienced and least respected of his team, and it's his babyface performance in that match that gives that match that real emotional weight. Because you can see during that match Kawada finding himself, but you get the young Kobashi who's just wants to prove a point. And then, you get the Stan Hansen match in 93 and you see the evolution of that. And then by 97, when he faces Misawa, you're like, he's finally here. He's finally ready. And journey takes years. The suffering that we talk about, that was, we see the selling in the matches, but the suffering throughout his career to get to the top. I think that's what really created that emotional connection with the All Japan audience throughout the 90s. And then he goes over to Noah and he actually suffers an injury, a bad injury, pretty quickly into the Noah project after the exodus from All Japan. And I picked his '05 match because I watched it recently. I just dip into it every now and again with Kensuke Sasaki.
where they just chop the living shit out of each other for hours. But what you're seeing in 04, 05, and he's not even the champion anymore. He lost the title, I think, by the Sasaki match. But what you see in 04 and 05 is the logical conclusion of the wrestler you see develop throughout the 90s. And you get the version of him in 04 and 05 that is Kenta Kobashi has become assured in who and what he is. It's just an incredible journey. And one of the most, almost like, he built a structurally coherent career in a business that doesn't allow that. And his career is so structurally coherent. It's almost like a perfect 3-act play. It's bonkers to think about because the wrestling business doesn't allow that, because people jump companies, because you're getting booked by different bookers over time, because you have up years and down years, because injuries, because maybe you lose crowd connection at one point or another. But Kenta Kobashi built a structurally coherent career that you can look back on in the year 2026 and say his career makes perfect fucking sense as his own standalone storyline. But his performances within that, it's not just that he did that, it's that his performances within that were at the very, very highest level. Number two is Kenta Kobashi. And look, you can talk about tag matches where he teams with Misawa throughout the 90s as well. He's truly one of the great tag wrestlers of all time. And how their tag partnership develops over time, and him taking Akiyama under his wing. He has enough, is it 04 or 05 match with Akiyama that would like blow your brains as well. We're down to number one. Probably guessed it at this stage, as his name came up multiple times throughout this as having other people's best matches. The American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, number one, the definitive greatest wrestler of all time. Pick a performance, pick an era of his career. We spoke about adaptability with people like Terry Funk. What he did, he came from Ring of Honor, this super viscerally hard hitting, CTE inducing style of being able to do that hard hitting style, but also being without doubt the best technical grappler in the world at that stage for years on end. And he went into WWE in the early 2010s, Vince McMahon's absolute circus, as he said himself, a parody of pro wrestling. And he adapted to become the best at their style. And he was also, there was an iconoclastic kind of feeling to him as well, and that he was bringing in his own style to a place where it didn't really fit, but making it fit. He was just, there was what's the word? Not subservient, subversive. He's a subversive throughout those WWE years. And in many ways, the restrictions on him throughout those years made him even better. It made him better. The WrestleMania 30 build, the Yes movement, the team with Kane, he made Kane look good. I think if I was making a WWE, worst wrestlers ever list, Kane might be in the top 100 worst wrestlers ever. But Bryan Danielson made him interesting in 20, what year was that? 14. Bryan Danielson made Kane interesting. 2012 to 14. And then he gets injured and he's out for years. Years at the peak of his powers. Out for years and it's no surprise, because if you go back and look at the Nigel McGuinness series in Ring of Honor, the Kenta matches in Ring of Honor, the Takeshi Morishima matches in Ring of Honor, you're like, oh, this guy has an issue with getting hit in the head too often. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. But when he comes back and faces some of the worst one of the worst booked comeback matches ever, in that tag match where he's teaming with fucking Shane McMahon and he disappears on a stretcher for half the match. It's like, we can't. I'm watching this show to see Bryan Danielson come back, Daniel Bryan come back, and that's how you book it. And it's some utterly dogshit booking that led to him have to turn him heel after the sympathy he had for his comeback. the wait for the return of Daniel Bryan. You had to turn him heel. And what did he do when you turned him heel? He gave you the vegan world champ, the best thing on WWE TV at that point in years. In years. And he made Kofi Kingston look like a fucking rock star at WrestleMania. And we got Kofi Mania, and he put him over perfectly in a fantastic wrestling match. And then he says, I'm out of here, lads. This shit ain't for me. And there's another company now that's doing things probably not to my exact liking, but pretty much what I want to be doing. And he goes to AEW and he has another, what feels like a full career of just perfection. There's too many matches to name in his AEW run. You've got the two. He comes in, right? The Grand Slam match, AEW Grand Slam, where him and Kenny Omega are wrestling that tennis stadium in New York, Arthur Ashe. And they have a fantastic 30-minute draw. And even the show, when he shows up at AEW All Out 2021, it's just like unbelievably excitement. I felt, I was like, we're going to get to see him off the leash, and by God, we got to see him off the leash. He goes on and does the two matches with Hangman Page. Hangman is a new champion, 1 hour draw with Bryan Danielson on Winter is Coming 2021. Unbelievable match. And then Page has to go away and regroup. And you're thinking, oh, Page's first title reign, you know, what's going on here? He's not the top guy. And then he beats Danielson in 46 minutes on Dynamite in the New Year. Might have been even on New Year's Smash or something, New Year's Dash, whatever they called it. No, New Year's Dash is New Japan. New Year's Smash, I think. Page beats him in 46 minutes. Incredible match as well. And then you get to stuff with Moxley, which weirdly I thought was kind of only okay. You get the formation of the Death Riders, or not Death Riders, Blackpool Combat Club. But his retirement run year is insane. You get the Dynasty match with Will Ospreay, which I know some people might argue is overkill. Fuck off. Ferocity in that match and the pace at which they wrestle, the moments where they slow it down, it's a work of art. An absolute work of art. And I don't think anybody in the last 20 years has made me care as much about wrestling as Bryan Danielson. And the guy could do it in a bingo hall or in a stadium. His match with Swerve at All In Wembley 2024, again, another absolute work of art. He did not earn the build for that. And he was the biggest babyface in the history of space or time in that stadium that night. And the reaction he got and the stuff with his wife and kids. Guy gets wrestling on a fundamental level. And I didn't even mention his ability to grapple or strike or tell a story, barely throw any of that, because he just gets wrestling. I don't know how long this video is, probably 3 hours. If you've stuck with me to the end, thank you very, very much. Recorded this in 2 sittings because I got real tired. I was doing it after WrestleMania. It was late at night on the Monday after WrestleMania. The Raw after Mania was like nearly finished, and I was at like number 32 or something. And like I was talking about, you know, you look back at guys I was talking about there all those hours ago. I remember from Bull Nakano to Will Ospreay, Rey Mysterio, AJ, Aaron Anderson, Blue Panther, Bobby Eaton, Akira Toa, LA Park, Aja Kong. Down to, I got real tired around Tully Blanchard at 46, and I ploughed on to Bull Nakano at 32. And I don't know what I said about any of those people. In that, maybe that took like 40 minutes or something. I was like, I felt like my eyes were nearly closing. So I hit stop. Said I'm going to come back to this today and finish it out, because I wanted to give this the energy it deserved, and the passion it deserved. The journey I've been on as a wrestling fan myself, making this list, was just fascinating. I started planning this. I didn't take part in the top 100 matches last year, the GME, and I regretted it. And I said I want to take part in the GWE in 2026. So I started really prepping for this. The guts of about a year ago, with, you know, kind of a lot of lucha stuff. Negro Casas was one of the absolute joys of that. Um, some New Japan 90s stuff, like stuff with Tenru, Hashimoto, Muto. Um, yeah, on the New Japan things, I always loved the All Japan 90s stuff. I always loved the All Japan women's as well. I got mad into that in the pandemic, but I hadn't really watched the 80s. I got into that a few months ago. And so I hope I did this thing justice. If you want to argue with me on Twitter, go ahead at Marman, Morrman. Check out the Wrestling Fan Wrestling Show on YouTube. If you've made it this far on Spotify, give us 5 stars, like, please comment below. I'm looking forward to hearing other people's thoughts. Link for the Discord is there if you want to join the Discord. Come in and argue with me there. We've got great match recommendations going up daily over on that one. The boys on a Thursday night are doing watch parties inside the thing. I know I'm going to be editing this on Thursday night, so I hope I can jump in and watch that with the lads, whatever it is they've decided to watch this week. But thank you for sticking with me for so long. And, cheers.